Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Market Open. We are live. Welcome to the month of June, folks. It is Monday, June 1st. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Hopefully, everyone had a decent weekend. It's June, baby. It is freaking June, the 6th month of the year. It's kind of crazy that we are 6 months into the year, but nonetheless, we are. And, well, we got a lot to talk about. A lot to get into. Lots of things happened over the weekend. I didn't even realize there was a NVIDIA keynote, a GTC type of keynote, until I realized last night. So NVIDIA definitely made some headlines in Taiwan with their latest announcements. And so we will talk about all those announcements. Some of the announcements they made not necessarily helping your AMDs, your Intels of the world, your Qualcomms of the world. Some of the announcements they made really helping the stocks that have been beaten up this year, like a Microsoft, which is up 4% in the pre-market, trying to break out to the 470s. And so we'll talk about the announcements. We'll talk about kind of what's happening and ultimately how the market is interpreting it. On top of that, you've got a little bit of a software rebound. I am framing it, hopefully, as SaaS summer. Maybe, just maybe, we didn't get to have a SaaS winter, but we will get, hopefully, a SaaS summer. Last night in the overnight markets, SaaS came back, and it came back with a vengeance. Palantir, Adobe, ServiceNow up 10%, Intuit, Datadog, Snowflake, Oracle, Reddit, Shopify, Zeta, Figma, IGV, 105. I mean, you're just seeing a very, very strong, not necessarily rotation, although some of the semi-stocks like the photonics names have been hit over the past week. And so maybe some of that money is going into software, but you are seeing a broadening, I would say, of the market into these software names, which is very, very healthy, given these names matter, given these names have incredible earnings growth and they're trading at free cash flow multiples that are, quite frankly, laughable when you look at some of the biggest names that are out there. And I think the broader market's coming to the conclusion that the tokens need to be processed, orchestrated, and governed through the application layer, which brings us back to software. So energy, semis, chips, software, fintech, all the components that would you would imagine go up in a bull market. I mean, Micron hit 1,000 last night. I think we're there in the pre-market. Micron 1,010 in the pre-market. It's not like we're taking away any momentum from a certain sector to give it to another sector. You're seeing everyone participate, which is very, very exciting. And hopefully that continues as we go through the month of June. All right, let's get into it. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Sassy summer. Yeah, that's a good one. Sassy summer is the way to think of it. Tess, good morning. Robert, Rick Huang, what's up, what's up, what's up? We got a bunch of earnings this week. I will not be here, unfortunately, for Wednesday's earnings. That's when you have Broadcom. I will be traveling this week. I will be doing the market open every single day this week, but the market close Wednesday, Thursday, Friday will not happen. So I'm going to be missing Broadcom and CrowdStrike earnings on Wednesday. Those are going to be important companies. And so we'll obviously analyze those on Thursdays after they report. Gene, what's up? Lisa, Jason, Chiefy, good morning. Vavral, Peter, thank you all for being here. I did not get to do the future show last night. I was with family, but Steve did the show. And hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I got to tune in for a little bit. And we saw the SaaS summer start to take into effect and Micron over 1,000 last night. So definitely was exciting last night for a lot of people. Matt Money. I interviewed Matt on the market close on Friday. Hasn't been on the channel for a couple months. So if anyone wants to get his latest thoughts on the macro, Rocket Lab, all that stuff, you can watch it from Friday. Marie, good morning. Prem, what's up? DJ, Cycle Time, Jason, Ultimate, Stano, Teddy, Rushil. I thought travels were done. This is the only travel for this week of June. And then we have Singapore end of June, and then we're officially done for the summer. I think the only other traveling we're doing is Tanner's meetup in August. And outside of that, we'll be good to go. So should be an exciting summer. Now, technically, June and July tend to kind of suck when it comes to the markets, and I have a couple macro stats because we got to look at the bear case as well. But the cool thing about the SaaS rotation is now that the market has kind of recognized SaaS is not dead, if Shopify goes back to 100 or Reddit goes back to 150 or Palantir goes back to 140, I think those dips get bought. Just like if Micron goes back to 800, even though 800 is a lot, that dip gets, but Micron got 4 new analyst upgrades over the weekend. I mean, it is becoming normalized that this thing should be trading at a higher multiple, and probably for good reason, because at the end of the day, if they're growing at the level they're growing at with the earnings multiple that they're trading at, they're probably going to go up. And I think that's the same for the ServiceNows, the Adobes, the Palantirs, the Zetas of the world. So The thing is, if we do get a dip, my point is, I think there will be money ready to buy unless it's some catastrophic reason. And even if it is a catastrophic reason, if it's not stopping the earnings growth, that can make any dip in the summer be a great opportunity. So the bulls are in a really good spot right now. Yes, we've gone up a lot. Maybe we need to come down and consolidate, but that consolidation will be a buy the dip, which means we might not get that big of a consolidation, because if everyone's ready to buy the dip gets bought at a higher level before it goes down more aggressively. So we'll be following it every single day in the summer, and we'll keep analyzing how this is all playing out. All right, let's get into it. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Let's start off with NVIDIA. I think that's the biggest news of the morning based on what happened last night. In terms of Iran and the U.S., we don't have any major updates. We do have one thing that happened last night. The United States struck Iran again from a retaliatory perspective and a defense perspective. So U.S. military said last night at 11 p.m., U.S. forces successfully intercepted 2 Iranian ballistic missiles targeting American forces based in Kuwait. U.S. military missiles were immediately defeated and no American personnel were harmed. So this is what happened on Friday, where the Iran military wanted to get back at the U.S. for attacking their base near the Strait of Hormuz. And so they attacked a U.S. base in Kuwait. Didn't really affect markets too much. The reason NVIDIA fell last night, or not last night, on Friday, when all of us were live in the market close, is because of the rebalance. That was confirmed. So 50 million shares were rebalanced at the close. AMD was bought. Microsoft was bought. I think there was like $2 billion of Microsoft that was bought. So that crazy close from 217 to 211 on Friday, now it's basically back at the same price, 216, ended up being an opportunity because it had to be rebalanced for the end of month. So that was really the volatility that we saw yesterday or on Friday to the downside. But the strikes on Kuwait, oil price is not really that affected. The market has, I think, fundamentally moved on from this Iran situation. Last week, we obviously got those Axios headlines that the Trump administration is very ready to move on from the Iran war and get to some type of ceasefire, and they'll figure out the uranium enrichment later. So for all intended purposes, it feels like this war thing is kind of done. And I don't think the market's that aggressively reacting to this stuff anymore, which is hopefully a good thing for all of us. Oil, by the way, 89, 87, just below 90. So that's the update on Iran. Jensen, what did he say last night? Well, he said a lot of stuff. So first off, let's start with his high-level overview on how he thinks about token generation, and then we'll get into the new products. We'll also have Jose on in an hour, and he'll help break down some of the stuff that he said. But a couple clips from Jensen last night at GTC.
From the industry's perspective. From the industry's perspective, that means that tokens are now in extraordinary demand. Because if you could do this, you're going to want to produce more of it. And because tokens are now profitable units. Tokens are now profitable units of revenues. Because it is now profitable, the AI companies want to build a lot more tokens, generate a lot more tokens, build more AI factories, which is the reason why compute demand here in Taiwan has skyrocketed. It is precisely the reason why all of you are so busy and your businesses are doing so well. In fact, that looks like some of your stock price.
I watched parts of GTC last night, and the Taiwanese crowd, they weren't the best at clapping at the right. Like Jensen, he would have to, at one point, Jensen literally said it's okay to clap. So I don't know if they were being humble or something, but they weren't the best at clapping at the right moments. But basically, Jensen is saying, hey, tokens are here. Compute equals tokens, which means you need to get more compute to be able to get more tokens, to be able to get more revenue. And as a result, if you don't embrace that, your business will fall behind, which led him to be making the argument that he's been making for a long time. In fact, this was his same response to the question that I asked him at GTC back in March, which is, hey, our software company is dead. His argument is no.
Whereas we used to launch an application, click and type, we now replace that with explaining to the AI what we want, our intent, and the AI generates the code or uses tools and produce the necessary output. This is how computers are going to work in the future. This is agentic AI. For 2 years, we've been building towards this, and now it has arrived. Now, one of the big breakthroughs, of course, is tool use. A lot of people have said, Jensen, AI is coming, agentic AI is coming, therefore all of the software companies are going to go out of business. I said, it's exactly the opposite. Because there are going to be so many agents, the world is no longer limited by the number of people. Therefore, Those agents are going to use more tools than ever. This is actually an incredible time to be a software company. But the software has to be presented to the agent in a way that the agent can use it. This is a big breakthrough. And in fact, what we have done, as you know, what NVIDIA's treasure is all of our CUDA libraries. I call them CUDA-X libraries.
He went on to explain why CUDA-X is going to be super important for an agentic world, because these agents are going to need libraries to be able to understand and disintermediate how to become an effective agent for whatever task they're prompted for. And that's where the CPUs that we'll talk about, that Jensen made a big deal about last night, and the CUDA-X library is also going to play a big role. So basically, Jensen was making the argument once again that, hey, software is not dead. And I know a lot of you guys think it's dead, but at the end of the day, it will continue to be alive. And I think the market's recognizing that. Snowflake had a massive earnings last week. Datadogs had massive earnings. Palantir obviously had a big earnings last month. It wasn't really recognized until now. I mean, Zeta, 50% growth, was dead. Now it's up almost 30% from the lows. Figma, 16 to 27. By the way, I'm looking at Figma. Figma's short 30%, doing some more due diligence on them. I mean, theoretically, they should have some juice back up to 40 if the execution continues to go well. JP Morgan just put a price target on them as well. So you're just seeing a lot more people looking at the software companies saying, hey, these things shouldn't be dead. And if they're, Anthropic was supposed to kill Figma because they had a new design model, where in reality, Jensen's like, well, Figma's going to be using Anthropic, and the front end user is going to get more value from Figma in and of itself. So from the software side, Jensen was incredibly bullish, saw a lot of value. From the hardware side, this was the big announcement. This is why Microsoft's pumping right now. They introduced a new laptop with NVIDIA's RTX technology and Microsoft's operating system.
Are going to reinvent the PC. This is going to be the new PC. Now, tomorrow night, I think it's tomorrow night our time, but I'm going to be with Satya, where we're going to talk a lot more about the work that we're doing together. Microsoft and NVIDIA, over the last 3 years, it took this long to completely
Introducing RTX Spark. Everything we've learned over 33 years distilled into one chip.
In partnership with MediaTek. I think I saw Rick earlier. This is N1X. This is a beautiful chip. This is a chip that, frankly, would take 33 years to build. And the reason for that is because 100% of NVIDIA's software stack runs here. If you want to run digital biology, no problem. If you want to do seismic processing, no problem. You want astrophysics, no problem. Everything associated with CUDA, all the physics, all the biology, all the genomics, all the AI, no problem. All the computer graphics, no problem. Every single application NVIDIA has ever created, and every single application that Windows has ever run, going to work so that we could be ready for this moment. As I mentioned earlier, that compute pattern called the agent is going to run in AI clouds. It's going to run inside enterprises. It is also going to run on your PC. What's going to happen to that PC when it has an autonomous agent? An agent that's helping you, that understands you. You could talk to it. It could look at you. You could ask it to read files, go help you do some research. It could do a lot more that I'll show you. But the new operating system is, of course, the old operating system plus large language models. Large language models, in a lot of ways, is the modern version of DirectX. It has, of course.
So what is the takeaway from that NVIDIA Microsoft partnership? And then we'll talk about what they did with the Vera Rubin, or the Vera CPU. It's a direct shot at Apple. It is a direct shot at Apple. And essentially, the Mac Minis that have been the back-end architecture for all these agents, OpenClaw, et cetera. I mean, Mac Mini demand has gone crazy. Tim Cook said that on the last earnings call. Basically, Jensen is like, why can't we have AI running on-prem, on your device, and have it be as effective to do these agentic workflows as what people were doing to buy these old Mac Minis to try to be able to have agents run 24/7 on device. The sort of key argument here when competing with the M series is, at its core, is Microsoft's user interface going to be something that people want to react with? Because some of the critiques I've already heard of this partnership, first of all, we're not going to get these laptops for the next 8 months. So I think, a lot of people are like, oh, how's the stock not moving even crazier? Well, it's a new product, but it's a product that I don't think the street has a lot of visibility into. So they can't really price in like, okay, this is going to be sort of massive growth for NVIDIA at their level. Now for Microsoft, which was needing a catalyst, Microsoft 465 right here, it's finally getting a hardware chip oriented catalyst. The software stench is kind of gone from the broader market, which is good for Microsoft because that's why it was down. But also, if you're a chip play, you get a premium, and Microsoft is starting to potentially become a broader chip play. But the Copilot, if that's the UI for how people interact with these new laptops, I mean, a lot of people are kind of wondering, is that going to be something that catches on to consumer demand? By the way, Nebius right here, 7.3%. Wow, 248 in the pre-market as that one continues to move. Jensen did mention Nebius and CoreWeave yesterday as two of the big neoclouds that are partners of NVIDIA. So at its core, I don't think you're going to see a ton of excitement on these laptops yet until, NVIDIA kind of proves out why these laptops are going to be more relevant for the agentic age. But it is important that they're announcing new stuff. And the fact that they're announcing this new stuff, I think, is also something that the street has wanted to see. And now that they've announced it, you're getting a lot more people to be excited about the potential of what can happen with NVIDIA and these new different products that are coming out. It's also been a while since we've seen a new product from NVIDIA, and so it's nice to see them coming out with something new for the hardware stack. Now, why is CoreWeave up along with Dell? Here's what Jensen announced yesterday with Vera Rubin at the Computex keynote, which CoreWeave was teasing about over the weekend, and the market is very excited about that as well. Okay, hold on. This video doesn't have exactly what I was looking for. Let me pull this up real quick. Basically, CoreWeave is going to be one of the core partners for NVIDIA when trying to deploy a ton of these Vera Rubins on NVL72, and that's why you're seeing CoreWeave get a lot more excitement from Jensen. So this is one of the mentions that Jensen had around CoreWeave and, as he said, Nebius. And then we'll talk about the Vera Rubin CPU as well. He also did mention Shopify. Yep, Shopify went up 2% as soon as he mentioned that.
That we do here across this entire stack, including our systems and software, it's the reason why we could work with small companies and enable them to be world-class AI clouds. Every one of these I'm about to show you are small companies just recently. And now CoreWeave is worth 50, 60, 70 billion dollars and growing incredibly fast. Recently, we worked with Nebius, and again, they're growing incredibly fast. Each one of these clouds have incredible customers. Cursor, the software coding company, Black Mountain Labs, image generation, World Labs, World Foundation Model, Revolut, the leading financial services AI company, and Shopify. Here's another one. This is Nscale, and their customers are British Telecom, Google. Google is using one of our AI clouds, Thinking Machines, a Frontier Labs company. We're super exciting.
So very excited for the neoclouds, and obviously that's why the neoclouds are getting a little bit more of a pump. Again, CoreWeave announced deployment of Vera Rubin today in partnership with Dell, ARM, and NVIDIA. So you had all of those different components come together, which is why a lot of those stocks are moving in the pre-market. ARM, I mean, this thing is just not going to stop. It hit 411. Right now it's at 392. The amount of catalysts for ARM, even if the valuation is aggressive, which I think a lot of people would say the valuation is aggressive, are outweighing the concerns about the valuation simply because they are one of the biggest partners. 90% of the float is locked up, and NVIDIA continues to pay them royalties for their CPU architecture as that continues to scale. And that's the final announcement from what we got at GTC. CPUs, basically, Jensen has made the argument that if CPUs are going to be the sort of core element of the agentic inference era, it's not just AMD or Intel that's going to get that market. It's also going to be NVIDIA, which is why AMD and Intel are down in the pre-market.
Okay, let's talk about CPUs. Vera CPUs. CPUs built for the age of AI. All of the CPUs until now were created for people. We were the users. We were the users. We were the renters. The way we use CPUs, we live in a world counted by seconds. The way we rent CPUs in the cloud, each one of them, more CPU cores you have, the more you can rent. the economics of the use case of the old CPU and the economics of the old CPU, fundamentally different than agents. Agents are impatient. They don't live in a world that is in seconds. They live in a world that's in nanoseconds. When it uses a tool, it wants the response time to be as fast as possible. When it accesses database, it has to come back as soon as possible. Every moment that the agent is waiting keeps it from going to the next step, the next step, the next step. It is vital that we make the CPUs as low latency as possible.
The reason Jensen focused on this is because AMD's and Intel stock price ran up like crazy, and ARM, because of CPUs. The reason Intel's down right now is because then Jensen took some shots at x86.
Moving. Advanced prefetchers with a novel graph engine anticipating the next data path. But fast cores only matter when data arrives correctly and on time. Vera is the first CPU to use LPDDR5X memory while correcting multiple errors simultaneously without compromising bandwidth. Vera achieves 40% lower peak memory latency versus x86, keeping cores fed on time through retrieval, analytics, and sandbox execution.
As soon as he said that, Intel started going down. So that's kind of the core stuff we heard from GTC in Taiwan. It's not like we got anything that brand new, but we do have a new NVIDIA Microsoft laptop, which the street should be excited about theoretically if that can outpace the sales of the M series from Apple, which is obviously still a big question, but it is more competition. And if CPUs are going to be the way that agents are able to communicate long-term, then obviously Jensen is leaning into that. Again, AMD and Intel have massively outperformed NVIDIA this year. They are trading at incredibly aggressive valuations compared to NVIDIA. Yes, they're smaller companies, and so they should have an easier time to grow, but they're tapping into what the street thinks is now the 2023 GPU moment for AI, which are CPUs, because agents, as Jensen said in that clip, need multiple cores to be able to run, and they need to work in nanoseconds. So if NVIDIA can tap into the CPU market at a profound pace, and I mean, Jensen knew this was going to happen. He talked about that back in January at the original GTC in Vegas, then there's going to be a much broader chance for the market to be excited about NVIDIA's application for GTC. Also, Jensen was making sure that he really enjoyed Taiwan, not only by eating good food and walking through the streets, but also by dancing. Look at those moves, dude. Look at that. Net worth 200 billion. Look at that. That's how you dance when you're worth $200 billion. Now, what did Intel say last night? Because Intel, I think, leaked a story to the Financial Times because they knew that Jensen was going to argue that their Vera CPU was going to be sufficiently better than essentially what Intel has been coming out with. And Intel's core business right now are foundries and CPUs. Intel comes out with an argument. Well, they didn't come out with this, but this was leaked somehow, that Intel is going to be competing with AMD and NVIDIA by the end of the year and releasing their own GPU. And that is part of the reason for why you saw a little bit of a bump last night until Jensen came out and said what he said. So Intel plans to launch its Crescent Island AI GPU by end of year, targeting the fast-growing inference market with lower cost, air-cooled architecture. The chip represents Intel's first major AI infrastructure push under the new CEO. I am very curious to see how the market interprets this, because at the end of the day, I think, yes, more of the hyperscalers are getting tired of paying the NVIDIA tax, but they also know that the NVIDIA tax needs to be paid in order for them to get the right performance. That performance leads to growth in their own business. So if Intel comes out with a GPU that is even half as competitive as what people are thinking, I think there will be buyers, but is it even going to be that good to get the market to be excited? Intel right there, down 6% on the day based on these Jensen announcements. AMD as well getting hit. And it makes sense why AMD and Intel are down. It's just, if NVIDIA is going to dominate CPUs, and if they're going to have CPUs that are stronger, more sophisticated, better with memory, and potentially cost less on the upsale to customers that are already buying their core GPUs, that theoretically should be taking market share away from AMD and Intel. It doesn't mean there's not enough market share to go around, but given the valuations of AMD and Intel and given the less of a premium NVIDIA trades at, you could see the market potentially getting into that rotation. But time will tell to see if that ends up happening. So those are all the announcements we got from NVIDIA. Overall, good event. I wonder if the street is actually going to care about it or if it ends up being a sell the news. But outside of the CPU and Microsoft announcement, there wasn't anything that new. A lot of the stuff he's talked about over the past couple of months, I think, introducing a lot of these arguments to the Taiwanese market was probably part of the reason they did that event in Taiwan. but at its core, that's some of the stuff we got. Fluence Energy had a partnership, I think, with NVIDIA this morning. That's why that stock is up 20%. I did see a headline on that. So you're seeing some of these smaller companies get more of a bid. Fluence, it was a partnership in deploying Fluence, Siemens, and NVIDIA developed a reference architecture for NVIDIA DSX Vera Rubin NVL72 AI data centers. The design targets a 136 megawatts facility of 100 megawatts of IT load covering utility connection, medium voltage distribution, low voltage power blocks, controls, and rack interface. So that is why Fluence right there is up, as it's one of the design partners for this new rack architecture inside of data centers. And that's why that stock is making a bigger move. Why did Jensen not mention Iran last night? I don't know, but he has mentioned them before in the past. He did not mention them last night. CoreWeave and Nebius were the ones that he mentioned. And maybe because he hasn't officially invested in Iran yet, but over time we will see. CoreWeave, I mean, dude, look, here's the thing. If Nebius is worth $58 billion, one would argue CoreWeave's level of revenue backlog means they should be worth probably more than $59 billion, and they're basically worth the same. CoreWeave feels like a buy. It feels like a buy right here. Nebius obviously has done incredible, but given the relative outperformance from Nebius to CoreWeave, and given how much Jensen is basically touting CoreWeave as one of their core partners along with Dell and ARM, you would imagine that CoreWeave does well. But look, that doesn't mean that Nebius is slowing down. I mean, the street's very excited about this. ClickHouse, which you're seeing Snowflake at all this premium from the data processing. Nebius owns 25% of ClickHouse, and ClickHouse, Databricks, and Snowflake are going to be major players when it comes to token processing. So at its core, I don't think Nebius needs to go down, but you kind of do think CoreWeave probably needs to get a little bit higher of a bid. And I think today we'll see how the street thinks of it. Bottomed at about 100 yesterday, now at 114 in the pre-market. I think Hood is getting hit right here, down about 4%. Because of none other than BTC. Now, just because Hood is detached from Bitcoin, or at least over the past week, it has seemed like it is starting to get detached from Bitcoin, doesn't mean that a violent move in Bitcoin is not going to affect Hood. And unfortunately, as Bitcoin is now down $7,000 from last Friday, yeah, that's probably going to have some impact on Hood. Is the SPY dumping as well? That could also be affecting Hood. SPY is going red. Okay, so we just flipped red on SPY. Of course, they're going to do this right before the market opens. Yes, SKM was mentioned by Jensen, SK Telecom, as one of their core partners. That's why that stock is up. What's the other one that was announced? Cadence. Their stock was up 14% last night. Now it's up 6% because Jensen spent a lot of time talking about them as a chip design partner. And that stock is also up. Iran stops message exchange with the U.S. in protest against Israel actions. Oh, boy. There's your reason for the red candle. Iranian negotiation team will stop dialogues and text exchanges through intermediaries due to Israel's actions. Okay. I guess we'll see how the market thinks of this. I don't know, guys. As soon as I heard last week that Trump said he's not going to give up the sanctions, that definitely made me think there's going to be a little bit of push and pull to get this thing done. I thought that was going to be a given. Where's oil right now? Oil. But if now they're using this as their reason, we are going to see oil just spiked 91.25. Okay, 89 to 91.25 on that headline, S&P 5. Now, again, S&P's down 62 cents. So it's not like the market's tanking or anything on this, but the short-term momentum, I mean, these types of quotes are not going to be good for the United States. Here's the actual quote from Iran. In light of the continuation of the crimes of the Zionist regime in Lebanon and the fact that Lebanon was one of the preconditions for the ceasefire and that the ceasefire has now been violated on all fronts, including Lebanon, the Iranian negotiating team is suspending talks and the exchange of text through mediators. All right, well, maybe we get another dip opportunity. It was fun seeing the green, but it'd be nice to get Zeta at 18 again. Now that we know it can have the potential to go. I mean, look, what else do you say, right? What else? Like at this point, if this is the game they're going to play, it's time to get an opportunity for a dip. I didn't see any Israel-Lebanon headlines over the weekend. Maybe I missed it. But if they are still attacking them, then yeah, I can understand why Iran's going to be like, hold on. we're not going to agree to this yet. And if this is the only thing holding it up, I would imagine Trump's not going to be the happiest about this, and he might have to make some calls today. But there you go. I missed it. There was a headline over the weekend. Oh, there is. I'm seeing it right now. Netanyahu orders Israeli bombing of southern Beirut. Oh, yeah. There it is. There it is. Another quote from the Iranians. Immediate cessation of the aggressive and brutal operations of the Zionist regime's army in Gaza and Lebanon and the necessity of the regime's full withdrawal from the occupied areas in Lebanon have been emphasized by Iranian officials and negotiators. And until Iran's and the resistance views on this matter are met, no dialogue will take place. What a headline 15 minutes before the market opens. Yeah, folks, look, I eventually the market's going to have to decide if they feel this is just back and forth negotiating, just like when Trump said last week that they're not going to give up sanctions relief. The market didn't even bat an eye. But it's not back and forth negotiating if one side legitimately says we will not even negotiate based on this one thing. So the market's going to have to figure out how seriously they take this. I don't know if they're going to take it that seriously. I mean, in the next 13 minutes, we will find out if they actually take it seriously. You're not really seeing stocks get hit that bad. NVIDIA's still up. ARM is still up 10. Micron's still up 3.5. I mean, yeah, you got some red candles right here. Microsoft from 468 to 463. But is that going to lead to Microsoft literally going red on the day or NVIDIA going red on the day? If we see that happen because of these headlines, I mean, it's a buy the dip. It's just this shit will eventually end, and these will be buys. But how aggressively can we get a buy the dip if we get them? So let's find out. That's the headline right there that has caused the short-term momentum to shift. Obviously, Bitcoin right there going red. Bitcoin is very prone to these geopolitical actions. Hyperliquid, which has started to get a lot more viral over the weekend in terms of being a cryptocurrency that, for those that don't know, Hyperliquid essentially creates a global on-chain platform for price discovery for all illiquid assets and allows you to leverage perpetual futures. All of that's incorporated into it. That has been taking a lot of the shine from Ethereum, Solana, and Bitcoin. Bitcoin itself has just been getting hit pretty hard, 71,864. And I think it's being used as the scapegoat right here on some of this geopolitical stuff. MicroStrategy did sell 32 Bitcoin today. It's kind of weird, dude. These treasuries are now selling their Bitcoin to buy back their stock. Anthony Pompliano, who also has a Bitcoin treasury, he sold Bitcoin today to buy back his stock. Like, it's kind of getting a little ridiculous in terms of how they're kind of framing it. But because Bitcoin's not moving, what can they do? The stock is cheaper to buy than the actual asset that they are a treasury company for. And so you are seeing that right now, which is also probably creating a little pain on Bitcoin. But, you know, it's not good sentiment to see one of the biggest Bitcoin holders like MicroStrategy end up selling the Bitcoin, even if it makes sense for why they are selling it. So if you're just joining, we talked a lot about the NVIDIA conference and all the new partnerships, helping Fluence with a partnership today, helping Cadence, helping SK Telecom, helping CoreWeave, big announcement with them, and the deployment of Vera Rubin. Vera Rubin are fully in production now. That was the other big announcement that Jensen announced last night. Their new CPU architecture hurting AMD and Intel as the market thinks that is going to be more competitive with those entities. But overall, this headline around Iran stopping all negotiations until Israel ceases to violate the agreement in Lebanon is why we just flipped red on some assets. A lot of stuff still green. And at 9:30, we're going to see if all of this ends up flipping red. Burry did make some headlines yesterday. He put out a big article saying that NVIDIA's Enron, and he tried to do some analysis on how NVIDIA is hiding certain inventory off the balance sheet, yada, yada. I was trying to read through some of it, but there was a point in the article where he was like, this is not a smoking gun, but this is something to pay attention to. And at that point, I was like, okay, so you wrote an article that is not really the smoking gun. It's not really the core thing that is going to, assume NVIDIA is the biggest fraud on planet Earth. But you're like saying people should pay attention to this. So I don't really think he has found a smoking gun. I don't think any of the analysis really makes as much sense as he's trying to make it. But, that kind of went viral last night. And I think a lot of people realize he's getting a bit desperate in terms of trying to find a way for NVIDIA to collapse. So NVIDIA right there still up 2.34%. And I don't necessarily think we are Enron. Rocket Lab and ASTS getting hit from the space sentiment starting to worsen. Now, we do have the SpaceX IPO coming up. That Blue Origin launch was not good last week for sentiment, but SpaceX is still going to be really important going into the next 11 days when we get the IPO. SpaceX is allocating, as per Bloomberg, up to 5% of its IPO shares to insiders with no lockup restrictions while targeting a valuation of at least $1.8 trillion. That is your space catalyst. If that IPO doesn't do well, obviously the space names aren't going to have fun. I really think the Space Catalyst is over if the SpaceX IPO fails. But just based on everything I've been reading, I think the SpaceX IPO is going to be more than fine. And the amount of demand for these shares is going to be monumental. So I think the IPO will be successful. And then it's just a question of what the market is willing to pay for some of these space stocks as well. Saudi Arabia condemns Israeli aggression against Lebanon. Okay, so you're starting to get some of the other Middle Eastern allies come in and say, hey, Saudi Arabia is no fan of Iran, but if they're agreeing with Iran on what Israel is doing in Lebanon, then obviously that's not going to be the best. Wow, oil just hit 94. It's not going to be the best for the United States when it comes to negotiating. Brent crude right there, 94. WTI now at 92, up 5.3% since the pre-markets opened. Yeah, that's not the best. That is not the best. Let's get into some other macro news, and then we'll see in the next 9 minutes how the market opens. I mean, look, maybe this is, for people that felt they missed some of these names, maybe this is going to be the dip. Maybe this will be the dip to start off June. Okay, couple of things that aren't the best to see, or maybe are the best to see. You can interpret it for yourself. But remember October 2025? When we hit a local top and it wasn't fun? Well, we just hit an indicator that happened during October 2025. Bank of America just said tech had the largest weekly inflow since October 2025. Last time this happened was indeed October 2025, and that's when we ended up hitting a short-term top for the next 7 months. That doesn't have to happen again. However, one of those things to pay attention to, if you start to see this much excitement and exuberance, Kospi, the South Korean index, was halted yesterday because it went up another 5%. It has now doubled throughout 2026. And so the euphoria, exuberance, excitement, even if it's justified, because Samsung and SK Hynix still trade at single-digit forward PEs, is getting up there. And obviously seeing the market start to reflect that. And, there's a lot of tech flows coming in, and more people are excited about the markets. And if more people continue to be excited about the markets, then you're going to see more people end up buying. Humanoid robotics, the market is excited about that as well. OpenAI, they are now hiring for their OpenAI robotics team. I think they basically cut their Sora team and they turned it into a robotics team. Sam Altman said AI should be able to help people in the physical world. In the short term, we are focused on robots to support skilled workers to build our future infrastructure. In the long term, we imagine everyone having a personal robot doing anything they need. So it looks like the robotics tailwind, which really hasn't even started yet, might be not ready to begin, but in the beginning stages of starting. And obviously your figures, Optronics, Teslas of the world would be leading that revolution, which would be very, very important as well. Derek Wall, thank you for the gifted 20 memberships. Appreciate you. David, Leo, Be Worthy, Chiefy, Mr. Mike, Tan, User, DRUS10, Travis, DAV, Rug Pullin. You guys all got a membership. Cloud Surfer, courtesy of Mr. Derek Wall. Derek, thank you for being here. And thank you for the gifted memberships as we continue to see robotics hopefully get a scale. Saudi Foreign Ministry just said, we condemn the Israeli aggression on the lands of Lebanon and reject the Israeli incursion into it and the assault on its sovereignty. Wow, here's another headline. IRGC set to take full control of Iranian diplomatic channels. Okay, that might be fake because they've said that many times before, but it's not good if the U.S. has to negotiate with the IRGC because the U.S. tries not to negotiate with the IRGC. So this is setting up for some red. Let's see it. Look at NVIDIA. There you go. A couple more red candles coming in. Bitcoin, are we going below 70? We haven't seen the 60s since when? We haven't seen below 70 since April 7th. It's been a while. It's been a while since we've seen. Yeah, literally the lowest we got to was April 12th, 71. And since then, we've never even seen 71. So early April, if we drop on Bitcoin below 70, would be the first time. Shopify giving up its premium. It was at 122 in the pre-market. That's down. Mercado Libre was up. That's down. Apple obviously down because of that NVIDIA announcement. Oh, by the way, Apple's planning to launch glasses in 2027. And those glasses, the report from Bloomberg is Apple is targeting a late 2027 launch for its smart glasses, codenamed N50. The eyewear market generates an estimated $200 billion annually. Apple Watch does now roughly $17 billion a year. So we've got that headline from Apple. Speaking on wearables, Meta also, which as someone who thinks Meta is a screaming buy right now, I really don't want to see them get into this, but nonetheless, Zucks is Zucks, and Zucks is going to do what Zucks wants to do. A new Meta memo that got leaked outlines a plan for wearables, including an AI pendant. I'm not changing my mind on the AI wearables until I really see proof that it's going to work. I continue to believe it is the biggest waste of time in Silicon Valley for these companies to be focusing on this. Apple included, OpenAI included, Qualcomm included, Meta included. I just don't see the vision on it. I really don't. I would love to be proven wrong, but I don't think people want to wear something around their neck that has Zucks listening to them 24/7. I don't think that's how people are going to want to interact with AI. So it's going to be burning more money on it, which is annoying if it's true. But nonetheless, I think there's going to be other ways for Meta to increase their price. And again, Meta was hated as much as Microsoft was hated back in the 400s. Eventually, these companies are just too powerful. They're too important. They end up re-rating. But, Microsoft is now switching the headline. The narrative. Meta has not been switching the narrative. Meta right there, down about 0.5%. Rocket Lab taking a bigger hit right there, 7%. So everything that's high beta, if we end up getting a really ugly drawdown based on some macro event, those get hit the hardest, right? So your SoFis of the world, which was pushing 19 last night, now it's at 18.21. Maybe this thing goes back to 15.50. Okay, that sucks, but 18 to 15, it was at 15 for the past 5 months. Who cares? Your names that ran up like crazy, like a Rocket Lab, might get hit a lot harder than a SoFi because SoFi just didn't run up that much, which is fine if you own Rocket Lab at a small cost basis. But if you brought Rocket Lab at 145, that's where you could be left holding the bag. So it's just one thing to think about if you are in super high beta names, to kind of monitor the macro situation in relationship to these high beta names, because obviously they're going to get hit the hardest if we do get an ugly drawdown. I still don't know if I believe this Iranian headline is enough to cause a dip. Granted, we've probably been needing a dip for the past month, given we've just been going up and to the right every single day. Micron right there, look at that, holding like 1,000 like a champ, even in the midst of this Iranian headline, which just goes to show you how much strength there is for traders on Micron. Palantir, we were holding 161. We are now at 160. That could easily fall below 160. Yup, it just did. Palantir also high beta, had a massive run from 130 to 160 in the past week. So another thing to think about as well. Traders are fully pricing in a 25 bips June rate hike. Wow. For the first time since May 4th. The reason they're pricing that in so aggressively is because the whole reason it was theoretically priced out was because if we had the war come to an end, then we wouldn't have to worry about oil, which means although we have a lot of inflation, eventually oil coming down would resolve that inflation issue. But if we're not negotiating anymore because of this headline around Israel and Lebanon and the IRGC taking control of our Iranian diplomatic channels, then we have to price in that oil will go up, which means we have to price out the potential for a rate cut, price in the potential for a rate hike, even though I don't think Kevin Warsh is going to hike. But that's not good for growth stocks at the end of the day, right? So that create a potential opportunity on a dip if we see it. They really had to do this 15 minutes before we went live, bro, for the market open. We were having such a good weekend. All right, folks. New reality. We got to deal with it. Let's see if the market can overcome these forces. It's pretty annoying. Get a lot of tailwinds from Jensen last night. I'll do the red or green poll real quick. Let's see what people think. Can we ignore these headlines around the war again? And can we move forward? Here we go. Monday. Welcome to June. 9:30 a.m. The stock market is now open. All right, wake your ass up. Let's get into it. NVDA, after the announcements from last night, up 2.2% as we get into this market open. NVIDIA right there, 216. Let's see if we can get 217. And can we ignore these Iranian headlines? Meta, 628 to 632, trying to go green. Zeta, 2348, holding on to 23, hit 24.25 in the pre-market. Robinhood getting slacked right there, 87.29. The reason that's down really is, I think, it can only decouple from Bitcoin to such an extent before the market starts pricing that in. So unfortunately, there you go. Robinhood momentum dying out right now is Bitcoin right there below 71,782. AMD, is that a Micron not stopping? AMD 495. Micron continuing to make its move. 1,020 again, multiple price targets over the weekend. So I think the streets are getting a bit more excited about that. NVIDIA 217. There you go. Right back to where it was on Friday before the end of month rebalance and the sell-off. Reddit 180. Dell 432. That's coming back. Google goes down. Amazon goes down. Is Microsoft holding up? Microsoft holding up. So Microsoft, ARM, Micron, and NVIDIA are your winners so far, at least from a semi perspective. Micron right there, 1,030. That's up 6%. Micron now $1.1 trillion market cap as Dell continues to move as well. Apple goes red. Intel still down about 5%. That one's getting hit. Arista Networks, that's up 4%. That continues to go up. This was at 147 after the earnings, so it took an earnings dip and has now come back. Again, a lot of these names from earnings are dip opportunities that have been bought. Rocket Lab continues to get hit, 134. Let's see if that can continue back up to the 140s, bounced off 132. ServiceNow hit 136 last night. It's at 130, still up 6%. Can't be that upset if you're in ServiceNow, even if it's not at the overnight market highs from yesterday. 133 right there, up 6.9% as that continues to move. NVIDIA 218. Okay. Streets finally liking it. Streets finally liking it. CrowdStrike is at all-time highs. Look, CrowdStrike's a phenomenal company. I think the street feels like they are going to put up 40 or 50% growth or something for giving them this much of a premium. CrowdStrike and Snowflake are now more expensive than Palantir on a next 12 months EBITDA basis. And CrowdStrike's not even GAAP profitable. Neither is Snowflake. They have 2x worse margins, 2x lower growth. So I don't really want to hear the argument that Palantir is super overvalued if you look at some of these other software companies, but I'm not saying CrowdStrike's super overvalued. I think the street's expecting a massive level of growth, and we're going to need to see if that growth ends up coming through on their earnings on Wednesday for the street to be excited. But I think it is, given the Mythos model increase. Maybe they just got more orders, and that's what the street's pricing in. Nebius 251 for the first time in history for Mr. Nebesis. I think Jensen mentioning them last night was a catalyst. They also had a couple of different headlines. Over the weekend, they had that partnership with Bloom. Last week, you got Nebius and Micron. Oh, one of the catalysts was JP Morgan came out with a report on the TAM for inference, and they basically said it's going to 5x by 2030. Obviously, Nebius plays a massive, massive role when it comes to inference. All the neoclouds do, but Nebius has shown some of the strongest execution when it comes to that. And I think that in and of itself is another reason to get the street excited about it. Nebius right there, 254. NVIDIA, did we hit 220? We are close to it, 219. We touched it for a second. Dell should be moving as well. Dell hit 405 on Friday. Wow, Dell 450. That 405 dip like it was nothing. 451 on Mr. Dell right there. Fluence also with a partnership this morning on rack architecture. That's up 35%. Again, this is a much smaller company, $4.7 billion market cap. So easier to see it make a move. Again, Hood getting dumped, I think, because of Bitcoin. That's my best guess. I really do think that's right because I don't think there's anything else that could be affecting it. But Hood right there, down 9%. Zeta still holding on to its 4%. Cadence up 4% from last night. Palantir also potentially going red. Are the other software names getting hit? IGV. Okay, you're seeing some red candles on software, and I think the reason for that is because when Dell, Micron, NVIDIA, Nebius, CoreWeave, and ARM go up the way they do, like at some point people have to sell some stuff to buy these names. It's got to be a little liquidity that gets out of some of the other sectors right there, including fintech. ARM right there, 394, almost touching 400. Oracle, is that green? Oracle, slightly red. And then Reddit, yeah, slightly red. There you go. I know it's a horrible excuse, but I think the software names end up being collateral damage when the semis go on a massive run when it comes like this. And to be fair, on Friday, the software names had a massive run. The semi names did not. The semi names weren't, down 10%. But Micron wasn't down 10% when Reddit was up 7% on Friday, but it was down a little bit, right? And so just like Reddit is down a little bit, it's not 180 anymore. That could be enough of a reason for why you're seeing that rotation, even if it's ever so slightly. ARM right there, 400. ARM right there, 400. Trump did not say to buy IBM. IBM did pump overnight last night to 340. That clip was from December last year. And so everyone thought, oh, Trump's next big stock is IBM because he said to buy Dell and buy Intel. It was a clip from November of last year. There's also a clip of him from 2019 talking about Nokia. You just got to be really careful fact-checking this stuff. But IBM did pump last night based on that clip. It's starting to sell off right here because obviously that clip was not that serious. DRAM, that should be moving up right now. DRAM, yup, $66. That's up 5.4%. SanDisk. I mean, SanDisk looks like it has a date with 2000, and Micron looks like it has a date with 1200. 1025 on Mr. Micron right here as Dell continues to move. 460. Yeah, guys, it's going to be hard for software to pump aggressively when the semis are pumping this aggressive. Just like on Friday, it was hard for the semis to pump aggressively. They were still slightly green to flat, just like the software names are today. But, you know, if Palantir's getting a 10% day, it's a little tough for that money to go into Micron and Dell. If Micron and Dell are both getting a 10% day, it's a little tough for some of that money to come back into Palantir. And so maybe we see that liquidity come in. Same thing with Meta. Meta 620. That one's getting hit again. Rocket Lab loses 130, down 10%. Marvell, is that green? Marvell is green. They had a great earnings last week. Microsoft should be ripping. 462, down from where it was in the pre-market. It was at 472, but still up 462. If you believe in the chip re-rating of Microsoft, I think Microsoft's an easy buy. It's Microsoft at the end of the day. And now their narrative is starting to come in fruition. Microsoft is still not expensive. Even if you didn't buy it at 350, it is not expensive at 450. But the sustainability of that narrative re-rating and their ability to potentially actually sell those chips to Anthropic, I think, is the big thing that's re-rating them. And I think the street's just looking for confirmation on that. ARM right there, 15%. And service currently right now up 10%. So you're seeing selectively certain software names get a massive bid. Reddit coming back as well, 180.25. CoreWeave, that's up 7%. And you're seeing ARM, which again is owned 90% by SoftBank. So you talk about manufacturing a squeeze, that could happen right here. And that is indeed happening. Zeta, whoa, we got a flyer. We got a flyer. Greeny green, baby. 24.54. ServiceNow is also very green. Micron now chilling out a little bit, which makes sense for why the software names are starting to catch a bid if some of the hardware names are taking a little bit of a chill pill. Dell as well, 461 to 453. As soon as you see these red candles on Dell, you see green candles on the software names. So you're starting to see a little bit of balance, which means maybe, you know, Dell, Micron, NVIDIA, and the software names are up moderately today instead of one side being up like crazy and the other side being flat. And I think that's a broader, healthier market for us. Nebby is 252. 252. NVIDIA continuing to hold to 220. Continuing to hold to 220. The thing about Zeta is this thing, once it crosses 28, 29, I think we are absolutely done with the teens. Zeta, the reason I'm saying those prices is because this is exactly where Zeta topped at in January. We need to get well above 24.50. I remember I was in CES in Vegas. They announced the OpenAI partnership. This is where it got to. And then a week later, it topped at this level. And then it went on to go down by like 70%. So we really need to get above these levels to say goodbye to the teens. And so hopefully that momentum persists. Same thing with ServiceNow. I mean, now you're in a little bit more price discovery, but ServiceNow is still down a lot from its all-time highs. Still down for the year. Same with Reddit. Reddit was at 250 beginning of the year. Now it's 179. So a lot of these names were dirt cheap over the past couple of weeks, but if they can supersede some of these levels, maybe they continue to go higher. Coherent right there, 361. All the photonics names have been getting hit. I don't really know the reason for it, to be honest. I think it's just they're kind of exhausted because, you know, they've all, many of them 5 to 6x, the smallest ones, the biggest ones 2 to 3x for the year. Photonics is not decreasing in its importance. Jensen talked about it last night. It's just, you know, maybe those stocks are taking a bit of a breather, which I don't think is too crazy. SanDisk, 1768. 1768. Nokia had another insider buy on Friday. I don't know what the hell these sometimes insider buying is noise. I get it. But when you have a daily purchase of your stock from insiders that have never purchased their stock, it's something I think at least deserves a little bit of attention. And so you had someone else buy another $500,000 worth of their Nokia stock at like 15.20 on Friday. So I think they're gearing up for some type of announcement in the space of optics with NVIDIA later this year. And that probably will be the catalyst that these insiders are kind of buying the stock before of. CrowdStrike, new all-time high, 753. Is that continuing to make a move? Is it true that MicroStrategy sold Bitcoin? Yes, they sold 32 Bitcoin today to be able to buy back their stock as it's cheaper than buying back Bitcoin. Red Cat, that's up 1.9%. CoreWeave, 118. Let's see if that gets to 120. IREN is down. So IREN goes red. APLD is red. Nebius and CoreWeave look like the only neoclouds that are up. Amazon and Google, Cypher's red, taking the beating right here. Once again, I think it's hard for the street to buy Amazon and Google when ARM and Dell are going up 10%. And so you might be seeing a bit of a sell-off right there. Also, Google's had a good run this year. So maybe you got some fund managers saying, look, let me book some profits in Google like Bill Ackman did. Let me rotate to stuff that's more undervalued. And, maybe that's a little bit of rotation, which is also not crazy to see that's happening. SMCI, that's up 1% after those Dell earnings when it was up 15%. Enphase, are we down today? Oh, Enphase getting hit. I looked into a little bit of the data center product that Enphase put out some, I guess you could call it white papers on over the past few months, and their data center product is not super compelling. I'll say that. I think there's a necessity for it, but they are, one could argue, far away from meaningfully deploying data center-based solar into the world. And so that thesis is like legit, but the execution of it might take a while. There might be other energy plays that are out there for the street to be excited about. Salesforce, are we above 200? We are above 200 on Salesforce, 170 to 200 in the past couple of days. Not too bad. And then Nebius. This has got to be up there for stock of the year. I think we got to put Nebius up there for stock of the year. I mean, just an unbelievable level of performance. And it's not even because of the price has been going up. It's just the level of diversification and catalyst that they continue to introduce. This is one of those names. They're not even in the S&P 500 yet. Imagine when everyone is forced to buy it. By the way, the S&P 500 will be announcing their new candidates on June 5th. Reddit's eligible. Marvell is eligible. I think SoFi is eligible. SoFi has been below the threshold over the past couple of months, so we have to look at the weighted average price. But you do have a lot of names that are heavy retail favorites that theoretically could get in. ASTS getting hit, 8%. That's down. Micron also up there for stock of the year. I think you got to put Micron, and to be honest, you got to put Dell up. The Dell was $100 a few months ago. And the fact that Dell is getting this type of a bid, yeah, Dell, Micron, Nebius. But again, it's not just because their stock prices have gone up. Their earnings execution has been so incredible that there's a reflection on why their stocks have gone up. Tesla right there, 2.2% down, and then Broadcom, 455. Broadcom has earnings on Wednesday. Who's buying Broadcom before earnings? I think this could pull a Dell. I don't have the stomach to buy it at all-time highs before earnings, so I'm not buying it. But Dell was up a lot before earnings. Dell crushed earnings. Dell went up a lot more. I mean, now the difference is Dell's was a $150 billion company. Broadcom's a $2.6 trillion company, so it's not as easy to move it. But, I mean, they're probably going to crush earnings. It would be hard to imagine them crushing earnings. It's tough to buy the name into the earnings. The last couple of earnings have been a disappointment, by the way, in terms of the stock prices. It was up like 2%, 3%. Like the last 4 or 5 earnings have been a real bad indication of what the stock will do. It tends to move on different catalysts outside of earnings, but that'll be a big one on Wednesday. NVIDIA right there, 219. Palantir back to 161. You're seeing the software names come back as the hardware names take a little bit of a haircut. So once again, Dell, 461 to 455. There's that red candle. Micron, a little bit of a red candle from 1,036 to 1,027. Same with ARM. ARM was pushing 411. Now it's 393. So these red candles, I think, are leading the algos to go back into software. And maybe we end up with a day where all of them are up instead of one side being up a lot more than the other. CrowdStrike again, continuing to move. Meta, dude, give us Meta 600 again. Give us Meta 600 again. Remember, as much as Microsoft was hated and now it's not hated, the same thing will happen to Meta. It is just a matter of time. Now, Meta has different challenges to deal with, but I think what this year has taught us so far in the past couple of weeks is you buy stocks when they're hated. For all the people that bought ServiceNow when it was hated, look what happened. For all the people that bought Reddit, Zeta, Shopify when it was hated. For all the people that bought Micron at 350 when it was hated. Like, you buy the names that are hated in a bull market that have strong fundamentals behind them. No one can convince me Meta does not have strong fundamentals. And eventually their time will come. It's just a real question of patience here. Fluence, right, they're up 33%. SoFi falling below 18 as that's down. Why is Rocket Lab down 10%? I think that ASTS Blue Origin launch explosion last Friday really sucked the wind out of these space stocks. And then the potential valuation being lowered on SpaceX. Now, Elon said that was false and that was fake news, but nonetheless, it was a narrative that got put out there. And so now space names also have run like crazy, right? So, but 10% is a little aggressive on Rocket Lab, especially because that explosion happened a week ago. So I wonder if there's anything new that's caught. Wow, Redwire as well, 14%. Sorry, the static fire, not a launch. That's correct. Does anyone have a headline for space? Because I'm just chalking it up to what happened last week, but that's kind of just my excuse for why they're down. Intel starting to get a couple green candles coming in. We didn't even talk about Berkshire. So Berkshire bought for $8 billion, or they put in an offer to buy a home builder. They bought Taylor Morrison, and they're paying about a 30% premium, which is a home construction company. Ticker symbol is TMHC. That's why Opendoor is pumping right here. This is the first acquisition of the Greg Abel era for Bitcoin. 7163, up 22%. They're paying about 8.5 billion. And yeah, I think Lennar, DR Horton, all those companies. Wow, ServiceNow is looking for 140. All of those are probably part of the reason to make the argument around why, home builders might catch a bid. Micron continuing to move up on the day. Palantir 161, Dell 452, Salesforce 205. Isn't it so nice when everyone gets to participate? If you're in ServiceNow, you're green. If you're in Micron, you're green. Isn't it so nice? I mean, dude, ServiceNow, by the way, the semi names have done amazing, but if you call the bottom on freaking ServiceNow or even anywhere close to it, you're up 71%. You just have to buy the lows. Even if you bought into strength, you're still up 30 to 40%. So the fact that there were multiple opportunities, one was March and then one was April and May for software, means that, I think a lot of people that deployed any capital at this point in any sector at least got a little bit of momentum. Nebius right there, 258. 258 as that screen. David says, I got now at 88. RF Andy, I know he's been buying ServiceNow. He's the one who framed it as Service Currently right now, which honestly should be the actual name of the company, Service Currently right now. And there you go. Seeing a lot more green. And here's the thing about software. If it dips, who's not buying it? ServiceNow's not going back to 80. And if it does, it's going to be seen as like the biggest deep value play that's out there, unless something in like the thesis changes, but it doesn't look like that's happening anytime soon. If Reddit really goes back to 142, which it was at last Sunday, who's not buying that on 70% earnings growth or revenue growth, 30% analysts estimated earnings growth for the next 4 years, trading at 22 times forward earnings? Like, now, when you make these arguments about multiple and multiple compression and contraction, they're actually being recognized versus a couple of weeks ago. If you said, well, the stock's cheap, the market was like, well, we just hate software, so it doesn't matter if it's cheap. Now it's like, no, it matters if it's cheap, because cheap stocks with good cash flows are a buy. And if they're not being destroyed by AI, SoFi back over 18, these are easy dips for the market to be excited about. Corey right there, 119.85. 119.85. As that continues to go green. Fastly as well, getting a little bit of bid right here, participating in that software rally, 1837, that's up 3.3%. MP, there was a headline on MP that I briefly saw, but Rare Earth Play, that one getting back, but it lost last week. Is that starting to go up a little bit? Zscaler, okay, so their earnings, I don't think were that bad. They fell 30% because their free cash flow margin decreased by 4%. They're up 9%, probably because the street was like, look, that's not that big of a deal. And these knee-jerk reactions on these software companies being punished by 3 times the magnitude we would punish a regular company for likely don't deserve to happen. And so that's why you're seeing Zscaler get a bit of a rebound right here, which is also very exciting. NVIDIA 220, back to 220. Once again, NVIDIA trades at a measly 20 times forward, does not seem expensive. and they are the epicenter of everything in AI. So at some point, I know the question has been, who's the next incremental buyer? I imagine the incremental buyer has to come eventually. And it doesn't seem like NVIDIA will be stuck at 220 for the rest of the year. FedEx, are we down? FedEx is slightly down. UPS, is that down? AMD, UPS is down a little bit. AMD is down about 5% on those NVIDIA announcements. I don't think those NVIDIA announcements were bad for AMD. It's just perceptually, if NVIDIA is going to have more control of the CPU market than the hottest CPU players, AMD, Intel, ARM, etc., even though they all still benefit, I can understand why the street's taking it down, but I don't think that's like a more legit reason for AMD to be down is it went up so much that it's consolidating. That, like, I don't think it's the NVIDIA headline. But nonetheless, the street's going to react like that. Robinhood trying to recover a little bit from the lows of 85, now almost 88. Zoom introduced Zoom. What did they introduce? Zoom Teammates or something. Zoom launches Zoom Mate, the first AI teammate built to turn conversations into completed work. The platform connects live meeting context with major enterprise tools like Salesforce and Slack to automatically execute workflows, generate content, and turns conversations into finished work. That is why Zoom is up on the day. Garcia said I bought 150 leaps on Palantir during the May lows. Congrats. I mean, dude, do we not think Palantir is going to be one of the biggest AI beneficiaries in software if software is back? Especially if they put up another monster quarter for the next couple of years, which it seems like they guided for 100% growth. At some point, the street's going to look at all these other software companies that are trading at incredibly higher multiples than Palantir. Like, this is the first time in 3 years you can say that. It's the first time in 3 years you can say, look at Snowflake, look at CrowdStrike, look at how they're trading compared to the growth and margins that Palantir is putting up and being like, Palantir is cheap compared to those. And we already know the quality of company it is. So I think there's a world in which that re-rating can be very aggressive for Palantir. 268 on Snowflake, that's up 5%. NVIDIA, just below 220. Guys, do you remember when silver was like going to be the next best thing since sliced bread? I was looking at the chart last night on silver. I mean, what a chart, dude. January, everyone's like, yep, this is the next best thing. 109, we need it in the data centers. And since then, it has gone down by 50%. It's one of those things where, like, the reason I never bought it is because I don't understand commodities. I'm not a commodities expert. I wouldn't act like I am. And so it's kind of crazy that in this bull market, silver, Bitcoin, they're not participating because they're not seen as assets that are actually meaningful to the narrative. And the narrative right now is AI. And now the software names are finally starting to play into that narrative. But it's not done that well. Copper's done a bit better, but even copper was supposed to be like the next big thing, and it's not really taken off that aggressively. Although I do think there's a way better copper thesis than there's a silver thesis. So, you know, the hype on some of these assets lasted for a little bit, and then it just rotated right back into the AI names. Nebius right there, 256. That still continues to go green. Silver was $20 back in October. That's fair. It's 60 right here. It's 3x, which is amazing in 2 years. But it did, 7x at one point, and that's when everyone bought it. And that's when it kind of came back down. I think people just realize buying assets that have cash flows and that they can see the growth trajectory for kind of makes more sense. Now, granted, the commodity super cycle might still be happening, and silver, gold, all these assets do get a bid, but the liquidity is going into names that are seen as the major beneficiaries. Cadence right there, that's still up 4% as that's continuing to go green. Oil still spiking. So, folks, we're not really seeing, is S&P red? It's red by 30 cents. Oil is up 7% based on this Iran headline. For those that missed it, Iran said they will stop negotiating with the United States until Israel stops their practices in Lebanon. Market dipped for a little bit as soon as the headline came out, and now S&P is about to flip green. Israel tells residents of Beirut suburbs to leave, of southern Beirut suburbs to leave. Okay, that's not a good thing because that means they are likely going to be bombing those southern suburbs. The market is not reacting to any of that, though, which is a little weird. As much as I'm happy we're seeing some green today, you would think the market would say, oh, that's an issue. And it's just not. Dude, we go up another 1%. We're seeing oil closer to freaking 97, which is not what we want to see. S&P right there, 755. Some of your high beta names in different sectors getting hit, like your Rocket Lab. Wow, Rocket Lab getting really hit right here. ASTS should be as well, 102.91. All right, both of those taking an ugly dip today. Your space names taking an ugly dip. Why is SoFi affected by all this? Oh, SoFi is right in the middle of everything going on in Lebanon. Because if that increases oil prices, that means rate hikes are on the table, which is, in the words of Noto, not going to be good for SoFi. So all this comes back to every stock in the market, to be honest. I am quite surprised, dude. Like, this is a decent headline. This is not a BS headline. Iran doesn't want to negotiate, and Israel doesn't look like they're backing down. Maybe the market's just like, okay, they're just saying it to say it, and Trump's going to call up Netanyahu and resolve this soon. But it is something you would think you would see some broader short-term action on. ARM 411 to 389, so ARM has gone red. Virgin Galactic SPCE is going up because people think it's SpaceX. Literally, if you go to Wall Street Bets and type in this ticker, people have been thinking this is SpaceX. They're like, oh, how do I buy SpaceX? And people are like, oh, buy SPCE. That's SpaceX. It's not even public yet, but people think it's public and they think that's the ticker. So I don't even know what to say about that, but that is why that's up. There was a fundamental catalyst on them resolving some of the issues they had on the balance sheet, but yeah, that's part of the reason. And now people are making it a meme. They're like, oh, so if everyone thinks the ticker for SpaceX is SPCE, which is a hell of a ticker, it's literally space, then a bunch of people are just going to ape into this. And so maybe this is going to go up the day of the IPO with SpaceX. So that is the solid due diligence for why that one is going up right now. VG should be moving today, up 1284, based on oil going up as well. I don't think that's the reason. I think it's hedge funds. I don't know if hedge funds, I mean, maybe hedge funds are messing around with this thing because they think it'll be a proxy to SpaceX. But it's kind of weird, right? Virgin Galactic's up 25% and Rocket Lab's down 12%. Like, the actual SpaceX proxy is getting hit for no apparent headline. So you just have a lot of people think of it in a different category. And even if it's a meme, the fact that it's a meme itself is enough to run up the price right here, which is what we're seeing. Nabia is 252 down from 259. That's still green. AMD losing steam below 490. Palantir has not been able to hold on to 160. What about your drone stocks? Ondas, that's down on the day. Kratos, that's down on the day. Your quantum stocks are also down on the day, as that's taken a hit. I mean, it's because people are dumb and think it's SPCX and are searching for SPCE. That's my point, right? The fact that people are searching for it and assuming that this is what it ends up being, and then they see it's up 20%, they're like, oh, it has to be associated with SpaceX. So I don't know if that's going to take a hit, but it's kind of wild to see all the other space names down on the day, and that one's up. Micron loses 1,030, so we're still holding 1,000. That one just got a $20 hit. Path, is that up? Path is up 8% on their earnings from last week. A little bit more of a delayed reaction. Is Duolingo making a move? Duolingo is indeed making a move, 5.7%. Let's check out the stock draft. This is going to be ending in 2 weeks. Okay, I love Mr. Matt Money, but Rocket Lab going down is putting me in first place right now. So Matt's at 67. I'm at 70. Palantir and Hood coming back to life for me in this one. AMD and Nebius being the big winners. Apple also a big winner. Steve's at 67. Steve's actually very close to Matt and very close to me. Tanner's at 17, and then Chris is at 31. If the SpaceX IPO goes well, I think Matt ends up winning first place because Rocket Lab and ASTS are going to pump. If the SpaceX IPO doesn't go that well, or the beneficiaries don't end up benefiting from the IPO, ASTS now down 10, Rocket Lab down 12, I might end up winning first place. So we're going to see June 20th is the official date for the new stock draft. June 20th. We have new rules, everything. June 20th. The winner of the previous stock draft gets the first pick. So Yeah, let me know in the chat. If I end up winning, what should I pick as the first pick? That's a lot of pressure to have the first pick. I thought I wouldn't need that pressure because Matt's going to have to deal with it. But now I have that pressure if I end up winning this thing. Or Steve's going to have this pressure if he ends up winning. Like if Micron goes to 1,200 the next 2 weeks, Steve might end up running away with it. So we're going to have to see. Meta right there, 616. Pick Duolingo. Dude, maybe I would have to pick Duolingo for the comeback story. Just for the pride of seeing this thing eventually come back. No, I'm not going to pick Duolingo. Although it would be hilarious if we did. Rocket Lab down 14 right there. Bloom down 4. Apple's down 0.5. ISM PMI 54 versus 53.2. 54 versus 53.2. That's relatively bullish. It's more than expected. Let's get some of this data right here. And market's not super upset about that yet, but oil continues to spike almost 7% right now.
ISM manufacturing now. S&P remains strong. How's ISM for the month of May? 54.0. That's a full point above expectations. 54.0 would be the strongest reading going back to May of 22. So very similar to S&P, basically a 4-year high. Manufacturing, at least anecdotally based on many numbers, is starting to pick up. If we look at prices paid, not such great news, but better news. 82.1, still lofty, but we were expecting a number around 85 sequentially. 84.6, 82.1 would actually be the least since March, when it was 78 and change. On the new orders front, well, it's still below an area of high water mark, but 56.8 is a strong number. We started out at 57.1. 56.8 will be the strongest since February when it was a bit below 56. So pretty good numbers. Now on the employment front, considering it's employment week, as you've been pointing out, this is a sub 50 index number, 48.6. Better than expected, sequentially higher than our monthly last look at 46.4, but it hasn't been above 50 going all the way back to September of 23. Now let's look at construction spending. This is an April number, up 0.4, double expectations, and last month's whopper of a number up 0.6 was downgraded to up 0.2. Interest rates are
all right, not that big of a deal. ISM and PMI last week as well wasn't that crazy. I mean, the real headline is this Iran stuff. S&P is down $1. Like the markets are not caring that much. Your space names are the biggest ones getting hit. Virgin Galactic now 32%. And your semi names are still holding on, folks. I mean, NVIDIA just below 220. But you're not really seeing that much pain from oil going up. The problem is we cannot continue to have persistent inflation, because then we actually end up with 2021. Eventually assets will get inflated, and then eventually the Fed will have to hike, and then eventually there will be an ugly drawdown. So like the war really needs to come to an end for inflation to relax. And it's not going to relax for the next couple months, by the way, but at least the forward expectation of it will come to less of an aggressive assumption if we know that oil is below 80. And we were close last week. We're at 87. We're very close. But headlines like this don't help. CoreWeave, there you go. 121, $65 billion market cap now. Nebius at $65 billion. It looks like both of these are just going back and forth with each other and continuing to make their move. Nokia, that is at 1520. Then you got Zeta right here, 24.28. A close above 24 would be very nice to see. Ondas just flipped green to 13. Microsoft, 462. AMC's up 18%. Is it? It is up 18%. I think there was a headline last week of the CEO not buying stock, but something happened with AMC. But this one still has a very high audience. AMC records highest May attendance since 2019. Did anyone go to an AMC theater? Oh, you know what it is? The Michael Jackson movie. It had to be that Michael Jackson movie. That's what brought people back to theaters. There you go. That's your catalyst. Highest since 2019 in AMC theaters attendance. Enphase down 8, Google down 1. I still haven't watched the Michael Jackson movie, but I think that would be it. What other movies are even out there right now? That's the only relevant movie, right? Like, I haven't heard of any other movies that are out right now. Oracle, that's still up 3.3. Obsession, that's a movie. Obsession, who's in this? Cooper, Tomlinson, Megan Lawless. I've never heard of this movie. Obsession, horror film. People are watching a horror film in May. Back Rooms. I heard of Hail Mary. Another horror. Why are there so many horror films coming out in May? Like, we're getting into the summer. We should be happy. Okay, I guess those are your movies that are going up. Palantir right there, 158. That one's still falling from the 160s. Rocket Lab, is that moving? Rocket Lab trying off 125. Horror movies do make you happy. Okay. I guess that's one way to think of it. All right. What other made headlines do we have? What else do we have? Nebius 260. Wow. this is my movie, bro. We get to watch a movie every day in the stock market. That's what we get to watch every day. Like, isn't this the best movie on earth? And we get to see it every single day. Most exciting movie on planet Earth. I mean, come on. This talk about obsession. This is the obsession. Nebius 261. CoreWeave at the same time. CoreWeave and Nebius, it's their day. It's their day. Iren trying to catch up a little bit right here. APLD also getting hit. Poet, that's up 8%. That was down 5% last night, so that just flipped. Now 9%, 1342. Duolingo, that's up 3%. S&P still flat, very close to breaking green. Very close. But it's not yet. Meta continues to go down. At this point, again, take Meta to 600. Give us a dippy dip on Meta. Snowflake 272. That one's spiking up again. It's kind of weird. Some of these names, they're getting their spike, then they're losing it, then they're getting their spike, then they're losing it. Dell and Micron and ARM. ARM from freaking 415 to 389, but still holding on to a decent chunk of their green. What's your range to buy more heavily into I think GLW is probably a buy right now, but 160 has always been the range I've been looking at to get a. I was actually talking with Jason last night, and 250 continues to be his price target on this one. Taking a breather again. Had a massive run, taking a breather, and I think that's really healthy for it to take a breather. But really, 160. Same thing with Nokia. I still think 13 is the dip. I don't like buying it into this much strength when the stock's already up double this year. So if you're going to really be patient and wait for a dip, it's hard to be patient. If not, then you DCA. But if you're going to buy like 500 shares, maybe buy 100 right now and then just slowly chip in the rest of those shares. Snowflake right there, 272. AMD really not able to get the move back. It hit 486 a couple minutes ago, just bounced to 492. And then NVIDIA right here, 220. Big Bear AI had a really good week last week after a rough couple months. This one's starting to get a lot more excitement, but that one is still down. Wasn't Michael Jackson a horror movie? It was not. I've seen videos of people inside of the theater for the Michael Jackson movie literally dancing and singing, and it's like turning into a concert for people. Little Rock Soccer, thanks for the super chat. Since it's World Cup year, why not do a stock World Cup? 24 World Cup countries have ETFs. You're the only streamer I don't need to put on 2x speed. Thank you. Hopefully you will not need to keep me on 2x speed. Yeah, that's not a horrible idea. It's not a horrible idea. Maybe we do a stock World Cup. Definitely have some fun with it this year. Wow, Space, Virgin Galactic. Be honest. If you're in this trade, be honest. Put it in the chat. We won't judge. Are you in Virgin Galactic right now? Are you in this trade? Are you swinging it right now? Figma 2664. This one's green. Rocket Lab, this one's still down. Andy says it was 5 years ago. Bought 200 shares last Thursday. No. Okay, not that degenerate this morning. Very few of you saying no. Decent chunk of people here saying no. Mr. Jedi, I'm going to steal your phrase from the chat because I think it's hilarious. So every time a stock is going crazy, Mr. Jedi says XYZ stock goes bye-bye. I'm stealing that phrase. We're making it a new phrase on the channel. Nebius today goes bye-bye. Nebius go bye-bye. I think it's a hilarious phrase. So when we see a stock getting a massive run-up, that's what we're going to say. XYZ stock goes bye-bye. Because it literally is saying bye-bye. I mean, Nebius, as Jensen. It's so funny that Jensen calls it, like, it's not actually pronounced Nebius, right? Like, it's Nebius, if I'm not wrong. It's so funny. But who's going to correct Jensen? Like, imagine Nebius gets to a $100 billion market cap and Roman is sitting with him in an interview. And Jensen's like, yeah, we love Nebius. Like, if you're Roman, there's no way in hell you're going to be like, Mr. Jensen, it's Nebius. He would look at you and be like, are you correcting me, right? Like there's be no way in hell you could do that. So it's Nebius for the rest of the time. Nebius goes bye-bye today. Is that one's going up? If I was the CEO of Nebius, I would call it whatever Jensen wants to call it. Exactly. Let him say it however he wants to say it. Service now down from 136 to 133. As that one down a little bit. I think Jensen watches Jason. Yeah, maybe that's why. Hood went bye-bye. Yeah, it went. Okay, so we can also do it in the opposite direction. Hood legit went bye-bye. Those gains went bye-bye today. No, but dude, what do you expect? I mean, if Bitcoin is going to get this big of a hit, it's almost below 71. You know, I've been skeptical since last week of the Hood divergence. I think there's a reason for it based on the headlines we saw last week. But at the end of the day, a majority of their transaction volume is still crypto. If Bitcoin goes down, the transaction volumes go down, and it hurts Hood. I was surprised last week by the run. I wasn't complaining about it, very happy about it, but it's also like, you know the stock well enough to ask yourself, how sustainable is it? And if Bitcoin was trading at like 75, I think we'd be at 92, 93 easily. But if we're trying to push below 71, it's not going to be the easiest thing for this to go up. I do think Bitcoin's a buy here, dude. I think people hate Bitcoin so much. It feels like Bitcoin are hating. It feels like the crypto hate is as significant as the software hate or the market hate back in March. I think eventually it comes back. And there's plenty of ways to play it, but I think it comes back. Read it right there, up 1.4%, down from 180 though. Rubric also. Oh, there was big news on Friday. Thank you for that, J Takes. This is super big for Kalshi, super big for the crypto industry. I don't know how the hell Kalshi got this approved. I think Donald Trump's son being on the board is probably what's helping this. But perpetual futures got approved by the CFTC for Kalshi. Perpetual futures are legal everywhere except in the United States of America. Vlad talked about this on the earnings call last quarter when he was asked, hey, when are perps coming to Robinhood? And he said, look, we want to bring them, but based on the current regulations, we can't. I think this means Robinhood, Coinbase, all these companies in the US should be able to bring perpetual futures, which are just contracts you can use to accentuate the leverage that you have on an asset class, which is what Hyperliquid has been. It's been their main use case. If you can start trading perps on all these US brokerages, that is a massive tailwind for crypto. And again, I don't know how Kalshi got it approved, but they were the first to get the prediction markets approved as well. So I think that's going to be super bullish. But time will tell. Derek says Bitcoin going to 50,000 by September. If it were to go to 50,000 by September, by November, it should have the rebound. If we're looking at the halving cycle and tracking it properly. So now, what's another way Bitcoin could go to 50,000? Well, if the S&P falls 10, 15%, like your boy Tom Lee has been predicting, yeah, I think Bitcoin can easily get to those levels. It's just those levels would be buys, I would imagine, before we end up reversing from the cycle. But we're definitely stuck in the cycle's parameters right now. CrowdStrike almost 760. Yeah, it would be horrible for Hood, 100%. Horrible for Coinbase, MicroStrategy, all that. Is HIMS up today? Is HIMS up 26.52. HIMS is up. Space is halted. Ooh, it got halted to the downside. 890 to 768. When it opens up, let's see if this thing crashes. Got halted to the downside, or do the buyers step in right here? You're going to have a lot of people believe that this is a temporary downturn. We'll see when it opens up if this one fully goes down. People realize it's not SpaceX. Yeah, maybe. Oh, Qualcomm fell today as well. They were down 10% pre-market. They're down 7% today. So the CEO was at the Taiwan conference, and he basically touted about their new data center chip. And I think the market kind of was just like, we don't believe this is actually going to be a really good data center chip. It's called Qualcomm Dragonfly. And, you know, the guy talked about all the token demand that's out there. And I mean, look, NVIDIA's announcements overpowered everything else. So that could be part of the reason why this thing just didn't get that big of a move. But I read some early reports on it. And basically people were like, we don't really know if this is going to be a significant data center chip. And Qualcomm doesn't really have a history of, you know, they're more mobile devices. So that is the catalyst for Qualcomm. That's why it's not 130 anymore. But for this thing to get up to 300, 350 and have that like ARM type of re-rating, they would need a really compelling data center offering. We got to see if that ends up taking place. Space still halted. We are still halted. We're going to see if this one reverses. Crypto is getting liquidated heavily right now. You got about $537 million that has been liquidated in the past 24 hours. It was actually pumping a little bit last night, so this one's getting hit heavily right now. CoreWeave, are we going up? We are going up. It was at 137 before the earnings. Again, Jensen loves this one. He loves it more than Nebius, but Nebius's execution has been incredible this year. Both of these massive moves right here. Iran's the only one. Iran's the only one that hasn't really taken off this year. Maybe that is the value play in the NeoCloud space, given the amount of capacity they have. Just need a bigger deal to see what happens here. NVIDIA, there you go. Finally getting some love, 221. Back to 5%. Remember when NVIDIA was 240 a couple weeks ago? Like the idea that this thing can't get back there after all the announcements, after the earnings, like it's kind of obvious eventually this thing will get back there. It is just a question of when. Just a question of when. Rocket Lab still getting hit, down 12. Okay, here's a question. Who's buying Micron into Micron earnings? 1,024. Who's buying Micron into Micron earnings? You know, honestly, I think a way to play it, if you don't want to spend the $1,000 a share, is DRAM. You're functionally getting it at the same price, but you also are getting exposure to everything else. And if Micron does have a massive pump after earnings, which we all know they're going to crush earnings, maybe Micron goes up 10, 15%, DRAM goes up 7, 8%, still a big move without as much risk. Maybe that's part of the way of playing it. Is Micron going to split soon? I don't know. I've heard those rumors. I do think if they split, it would be very bullish. Now, granted, stock splits have not gone well over the past 5 years. Like if you look at all of them, they've kind of done horrible in the next 12 months performance. But I mean, people getting to buy Micron at 100. They look at the forward PE. Like 1,000 looks expensive because it's $1,000 when in reality, you know, if you look at the multiples, it's not. If it's trying to get $100 and the multiple looks cheap, I mean, I think there's a lot of retail just say, screw it, I'm buying Micron. And I think that would easily get the street to be excited about this. Richard, thanks for the super chat. Can you comment on Keel? I have not done a ton of research on Keel. I started looking at them last week. The biggest bull case on Keel right now is that Leopold owns 38 million shares, and they have 3 potential deals that they're competing for that would potentially re-rate this company at 3.4 billion. So it is very speculative. Granted, you have some big names in that think they're going to be able to re-rate. At the end of the day, you know, I don't think this is something you buy 50,000 shares of, but if you buy 1,000 shares, a couple thousand shares, and just let it ride on the assumption that they get a hyperscaler deal at 3 billion, it's not that crazy to see it going to 6 billion. But intense due diligence on it I've not been able to do too much. I actually called someone last week to talk about Keel. And the biggest bull case we're both seeing is this Leopold guy who's so bullish on it. We're like, okay, this guy has to know something around. He's not buying 38 million shares for no reason, right? So there might be a deeper reason for why he's excited. TSM 440, that's up 5. TSM 2.3 trillion today. Space is going bye-bye. 696. Okay, let's see if people step in. 890 to 7. 700 million market cap, 103 million shares being traded right now on this thing. Let's see. If this was 667. I wonder what caused that dump. There had to be someone big who just dumped a lot of shares and the volume couldn't handle it, and that's when it got halted. And we're going to have to see. Blue Ship, thanks for the super chat. There's no way they will hike rates. I'm sure a cut is still coming. I think if oil can get down, a cut is coming. I agree with you. I don't think they will hike, but I don't think we can guarantee a cut if oil. I mean, as much as Kevin Warsh probably wants to cut, he's just not going to be able to justify. I mean, he's not, a one-man party. He has to get the rest of the Fed governors on board. And Waller seemed super hawkish last week as well. And he's supposed to be the dove. So we need oil to come down. Could have been dilution. It could have been dilution. That's a good point. We don't know yet. It could have been dilution on Mr. Space. What's in it? Thanks for the super chat. I'm from the U.S., Pennsylvania, but currently right now I'm on vacation in Prague. It's weird to have the market open at 3:30 p.m. enjoying a beer at the 6th floor overlooking the city. That's got to be amazing. That's got to be amazing. I've never been to Prague. I've heard many amazing things about their scenery. So thank you for being here, being part of the show, and hopefully you enjoy the beer at 3:30 p.m. watching the market open. NVIDIA right there, 221. Cerebras, are we going down? Oh, we're going down. Nice little exit liquidity pumped at 380 for retail on Cerebras. My fear is this is what happens to SpaceX. But SpaceX is way cooler than Cerebras. So as much as I think it could happen to SpaceX, I also think there'll be enough hype to not let that happen. But yeah, I mean, Cerebras still trades at 92 times sales. Not earnings, sales. Like, trades at 530 times earnings. Like, I mean, at some level, there's so many other chips. I mean, Micron, you could argue qualitatively if it's more important than Cerebras, but definitely valuation-wise, is a hell of a lot easier to buy this thing at 1,000 than Cerebras at 219. Insiders could be cashing out. Yeah, I mean, there's certain VC funds that have a lockup, but certain insiders have different privileges on when they can sell or not. Nabius, wow, 265. My goodness, dude. My freaking goodness. This is incredible. Just an incredible rally from Nebius and Corey right here. ARM back to 400. Okay, ARM coming back to life. Nokia coming back to life. Corning down 4% on the day. Zeta getting a red candle. I would imagine all your software names are getting a red candle right now. Yep. Palantir, red candle. Reddit, red candle. Shopify, red candle. When the semis explode, ServiceNow, red candle. They got to get the money from somewhere. When the semis chill out a little bit, the money comes back to software. But at least it's not like the past month where software would just be dead the whole day no matter what happens. NVIDIA, 222. Okay. I mean, I think most analysts, NVIDIA got upgraded a couple times to 300 today. I think most analysts are ready to see this thing officially break out. Yeah, Kathy's bag holding the crap out of Cerebras. I didn't get that buy, dude. I didn't get it. Like, some of these buys are just so bad from her. Like, really? You're going to be the institution that becomes exit liquidity on Cerebras on the IPO? Like, what was the need to buy so much of it so quickly? Like, if it runs away, it runs away. There's plenty of other opportunities in this market. It's like, let's say Cerebras was 500. It's like, okay, whatever. Like, there's so many opportunities in this market to have to chase Cerebras on the day of the IPO. It's unbelievable, some of the risk management that she practices. Unfreaking believable. See, Salesforce still going up 206, and then Nabesis. Guys, does this have a date with 300? Because at 150, a majority of us said, all right, enough is enough. 80 to 150, it's chill, right? Covered calls, trimming. Like, I remember the whole gambit back at 150. Then it went to 170. People were like, okay, a little extension. Then it came back down to 165. It's like, okay, whatever. Then it broke out to 190. And I was like, wait a second. 200's on deck. Then it got to 200. Then it got to 230 on earnings. Then it went back to 185. I was like, okay, 230 was too much. Now it's at 265 after Leopold buys. I mean, I don't think there's anything stopping it. There's no narrative that's bearish for Nebius outside of dilution. And if they dilute, I think most shareholders would say, yeah, it's probably time to dump some shares, and it would get eaten up so quickly. And I think the market wouldn't even care about it. And a lot of their deals already have so many prepayments that they kind of don't need to dilute. So this one has just been an incredible, incredible runner. And I don't know if it's slowing down. CoreWeave up 13. Rocket Lab down 12. Meta demolished again. I think the street doesn't like the wearable news, and I would agree with them. The wearable stuff is stupid. I think Zuck should abandon that. But if they're gonna give it to us cheap, then they might as well give it to us cheap because there's a different catalyst to buy it outside of wearables. Palantir's about to go red. ServiceNow also losing some steam. Rocket Lab still down. SAS being sassy again. That is correct. SAS being sassy again. Tesla going down. Is there a headline? What is this? The U.S. Supreme Court asked President Trump's administration on Monday to weigh in on whether it should hear a bid by Robinhood to shut down a lawsuit accusing the online brokerage of misleading investors about its financials and growth prospects for its IPO. The justices are considering whether to take up Robinhood's appeal of a lower court's decision to revive the proposed class action lawsuit from July 2021. Okay, Hood's getting involved with the Supreme Court right now. That's not that's not always the best thing in the world, but I guess that's giving you a little bit of a dump. Maybe that was the reason today outside of Bitcoin. Maybe the street knew there was going to be this lawsuit thing. Supreme Court seeks Trump's administration views on Robinhood IPO dispute. See, this is where it's time for Vlad to call up Donnie T and be like, hey, remember those Trump accounts that I built for you? Yeah. Can you tell those 9 justices to just chill out and not worry about this? This is a 5-year-old lawsuit. That's where having the president on speed dial kind of helps. Meta 610, Nebius still pushing, NVIDIA still pushing. Palantir red. Oscar 23, that's up on the day. Google getting hit, Amazon getting hit, Enphase getting hit, Marvell still pushing, Broadcom still pushing, Dell still pushing. Okay, software going red, energy going a bit red, like your blooms. And then crypto, obviously, going red. Yeah, Trump Hood tweet coming soon. Yeah, maybe that helps. Amit, I still have my 62,000 shares of Figma from the 16s. Dude, Holobeast, I think your Figma thesis is not only accurate, I think you can get a squeeze right here if they put up a massive quarter because it's still short at 30%. I don't know why people are shorting Figma. It's an amazing company. Fundamentals are great. But if they're shorting it because of the software narrative, this thing should go much higher if it can get a squeeze. But they're going to need a good earnings. And so in July, we're going to have to see what they put up. ASTS, are we going down? We are still going down. Iran says U.S. Israel tried to pressure it via Lebanon and Gaza. So similar to what we heard out in the morning. Al Jazeera, Israel has carried out an airstrike in southern Lebanon. Okay. The market is eventually, I think, going to have to deal with this Iran situation. I don't know, guys. You would think we should be red on these headlines, but we're not really red on these headlines. SAS still slightly green in different sectors. S&P is flat. Palantir just got hit. Reddit as well getting hit. Again, we're going to need to really see how the market thinks of this. Nebius getting the bid. I mean, Nebius is getting close to 270, folks. 268.90. Shopify 120. ServiceNow also going down. I mean, the money is going into the neoclouds right here. Same with CoreWeave. 126. Same with CoreWeave. Photonics are pumping, are they? They're at least not at the lows. Lumentum's still red, but not as red. Yeah, this is interesting. This is very interesting today. You had a bunch of different sectors flip within the past hour. Let me put up the heat map, and then Nebius ended up and CoreWeave being the ones that are benefiting right here. Heat map is relatively red outside of your semi names and a few software names. But at least you still have some level of green right here. Oil's still up a lot. Oil's still up a lot. 94 now on oil. It's the highest of the day, 8%. The highest used to be 93.50. We just broke that. We see 95. Not sure how the street's going to react to it. All right, let's bring someone onto the show to help us break down the events of last night for NVDA. And, you know, usually when he's on the show, stocks start to go green. So hopefully he helps us out a little bit. Mr. Jose. Jose, what's up?
Hey, what's going on, man? Did you say, what did you call NVIDIA?
NVIDIA?
Chat, okay, all right.
That's how Jason calls it.
At
least it's not NVIDIA. You know,
you were having a mini stroke or something. I was getting worried for you.
Dude, did you get your sleep? Because I saw you were up pretty late last night with Tanner.
Yeah, I did. I mean, with the little one, even 5 hours, I'm already used to like 5 hours of sleep, right? So it's I'm usually up at that hour just working anyways.
Okay, so let's get into it. Jensen announced a lot of stuff last night. Very curious for your take on it. I think we'll start off with the CPU news because that is what took AMD and Intel down. Here's my question. Did he announce anything that is bearish for the other competitors in the CPU market?
I don't. There's going to be the market is huge. Let's just say that the market is huge right now. If the market wasn't as huge as it was, then probably yes, it would be bearish. I think just the market, we're in the market where everybody can sell and still be supply constrained. But if the supply constraint wasn't an issue in the CPU space, I do think there would be some threat for at least the market that is growing right now, right? Because in the CPU space, you still have your traditional workloads that you run, and that's where like x86 has done really well with. That market is not growing as crazy as kind of like the agentic AI workload on the CPU space, and that's where NVIDIA is truly focusing on. And that's where mainly a lot of these shortages are happening in. And this was, I think, some really good benchmarks that we saw from NVIDIA that for those agentic workloads on the CPU market, they're doing really good against x86. So they're going to continue to sell in the CPU space. The other thing that I do think is showcased is the power of an ecosystem, right? And NVIDIA was mainly a GPU player, but because its GPUs were so good, it was able to integrate CPUs into that. So it's like, hey, if you want to buy GPUs, you buy with all these massive systems. It's like the Blackwell, the Grace Blackwell. It always had a Grace CPU in there, and it showcases because you have the strength in one market, that ecosystem, the ability for you to cross sell increases dramatically.
So, okay, the x86 architecture you're saying is not the kind of core element for the agentic AI compute era. Nonetheless, Intel, AMD have gotten a massive bid from the market with incredibly higher earnings multiples than NVIDIA. Do you think Jensen is trying to like take that earnings multiple from them and give it to him because Vera should be better than whatever AMD or Intel comes up with? Or do you think the market is just so massive it doesn't matter?
I think the market is so massive. I still think x86 is definitely good for agentic AI, and that's what we see NVIDIA and AMD and all these players continue to sell out on CPUs. I just think there are certain niche workloads that may be NVIDIA because they're only focusing on those workloads. Right. I think the best way is like I noticed there's like that circle or star diagram that you can kind of like put all the strength. The x86 would be really good, a very well balanced on everything. Where if you kind of probably put like the gray CPU, it would be more leaning towards just like AI agentic workloads. So one thing that we are seeing though is you still need a lot of non-traditional AI workloads to go with AI solutions. So NVIDIA is showcasing the strength of like AI CPU. They're definitely going to have a huge market there. I wouldn't be too worried about Intel and there for the data center space. I think the CPU and the consumer space, a different story. If maybe we'll talk about that one later.
Okay, so let's talk about I guess what they're doing in the CPU data center space. Then, did you think that was something that was more impressive than not, or with CoreWeave, ARM, Dell? I mean, it seems like they made a really big deal of how they're deploying Vera Rubin.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing a nice pickup here on CoreWeave and Nebius, and I think a lot of AI neocloud players. I mean, Vera Rubin is going to be a beast in forms of token generation and forms of agent of everything, right? He even explains it. He's like, Hopper was pretty much the system that they built for pre-training. Then pre-training wasn't the big enough of a market. It started to go into inference. And that's where they created the Blackwell NVL72. When you connected 72 GPUs together, it was the perfect machine for just typical inference and thinking. But now in this era, and I don't know how NVIDIA, if they have a freaking crystal ball that they keep getting it right. But this era is the agentic era, and the Vera Rubin is perfect for that because it has all these solutions intact for it. So all these players, Nebius and CoreWeave, are great partners. I know they were both shouted out by Jensen himself at yesterday's keynote. So it's a pretty exciting time when you're going to be able to sell tokens and you have the AI infrastructure behind it.
Are Nebius and CoreWeave are Nebius and CoreWeave cheap at 60 billion? Like, yes, I know they've had crazy strength, but
yeah.
Are these companies probably $500 billion companies? Are these still buys in your opinion?
I can't see in the current market right now. If you're looking at growth opportunity, yes, I don't see why CoreWeave, Nebius, or all these other players can't hit $100 billion market opportunities based on this. These are AI cloud players now, right? I can't see a few years ago, so many people were saying, oh man, AWS, if you put this price to sales ratio to it, it would be at this type of market cap. If you would put this type of price to sales ratio on Azure or Google Cloud, it would be this type of market cap. Now no one's talking about something like that. It's like the market thinks data centers are easy and kind of running these data center solutions. I could see a world, if we continue to see this demand growth, that these become $100 billion companies.
Okay, this new laptop. Honest opinion, how impressed were you with this new AI laptop, and do you actually think it's a tailwind in the agentic world for NVIDIA and Microsoft?
I think so, right? I think the consumer market has been pretty slow. I think it again showcases that if you are a popular company, you can just kind of cut out some of the other people you work with, right? Because every other GPU, every other laptop and desktop before to this, what they announced, has always had either ARM, Intel CPU, an AMD CPU, and just recently a Qualcomm CPU. And NVIDIA says, no, you know what? You guys are doing it wrong. I'm going to show you guys how to do it right. If you buy a laptop, it's going to be NVIDIA GPU, NVIDIA CPU. With their partnership with MediaTek, I think MediaTek was the one who's helping them design that. But we see all these stories of Apple selling their Mac Studios, right? If you go to Costco, if you go to Best Buy, the Mac Studios are sold out. Depending on the price point, I think it could actually be a pretty interesting market, even though it won't really move the needle. As we know, 95% of probably total revenue comes from the data center space. It could create that little push of maybe a incremental revenue beat and incremental earnings per share beat during each earnings. Because there is that opportunity there.
Do you think this was Jensen trying to meaningfully compete with Apple?
I I think so. I mean, it's like, why is Apple getting all this Mac Studio game? What are they really doing in the AI space
Right.
besides just wait? The weight approach is not bad, right? The weight approach is not bad, but it's like we're leading this. Why can't we be leading it in the laptop and kind of desktop workstation space?
So then here's the next question. Do you also think Jensen's realizing that maybe another way to get the stock up is to get the street to not feel so scared about the concentration of customers in the data center space? And over the next couple of years, NVIDIA shareholders should expect multiple new types of products that maybe get them to really diversify from the core GPU that they're offering.
Yeah, and I think that's why when we saw this recent earnings, they really even started to divide the revenue a lot more, right? You
Yeah.
kind of saw kind of like physical AI, or I forget what they called it. I don't think it was physical AI, but they called it something else. And then they even the cloud providers, right? They have cloud providers, and then they broke it down into enterprise. So I do believe NVIDIA needs to change the optics of it. I don't think I think maybe kind of releasing more consumer products might change just like the visual optics, but at the end of the day, I don't think it's really going to change much in the numbers itself. There was one thing that I thought there were two things that I thought were pretty impressive from the keynote that I don't think are getting a lot of attention though.
Okay, so tell us what's not getting attention as Nebius gets all the attention, or Nebius, I should say.
Nebius. I mean, Jensen changed the name. It's Nebius.
Nebius.
That's it.
Whatever Jensen says it is. Okay.
Whenever Jensen said clap, everybody claps. Whenever I was on my live stream clapping. Whenever he said it, it was
Jose and I were at GTC when Jensen paused because someone's phone was ringing. And it was like a teacher who was angry at the class. Like it was like dead silent, bro. We were all like, "Oh shit!" We pissed him off.
I almost broke my phone there. I was like, I don't want my phone going off. But the first thing I would say is they kind of announced a kind of robot template with I think it was with Unitree. I forget who it was. I think it was with Unitree Robotics. But it's like they're selling. You're going to be able to buy this robot and then code this robot yourself. It's like they're really entering now and they're putting more investments into the robotic space. And I really, really like that a lot. I forget what was the company. Maybe someone on chat can tell me. But it's like now you can buy the robot. You can kind of even train the robot. And it seems like we're getting a little bit closer into that robotics, physical AI space. The second thing is they've created kind of the software solutions for data centers. And we've actually heard Jensen talk about this a lot, where data centers, when they talk to power utility companies, they say, look, I need X amount of gigawatts. And at the end of the day, because of emergencies, they have to have some form of buffer room. They have to have like 20% energy that they're never using in case of emergency or something like that. Well, NVIDIA yesterday created kind of like the software design that it understands when emergencies are happening. And for now, you can probably be running your data centers at like almost near full capacity. And it ends up bringing like an extra 10-15% on power from these data centers. And that's a lot. I mean, even a 5%, let's say in a 1 gigawatt data center, 5% is 50 megawatts. That's what some data centers are. So it's like any 5 to 10% improvement, 50 megawatts of data centers is a ton load of GPUs or CPUs or whoever. And it's a massive amount of revenue growth for all these players as well. I mean, if you're selling tokens and you're able to increase your revenue by 5%, I think that one was, I forget the name of that software solution. Again, I was half asleep yesterday listening to it, but that was one of the biggest ones that I really enjoyed.
I want to get your reaction to this because I think it goes in line with what you just said about how costs are increasing.
Where NVIDIA's computing layers and software and computing stacks are integrated into other people's platforms, third-party platforms and libraries that serves end markets. That was a computing ecosystem. This is an AI factory ecosystem. This is way downstream of all of you. Upstream of me is all of you, and downstream of us is this ecosystem. Because NVIDIA ultimately is not just building a GPU, not just building a system, we're helping customers build these AI factories, these AI infrastructure that is so immensely complex. Each one of these at 1 gigawatt level started at $30 billion. It is at 50, 60 billion dollars, and soon it will be 80, 100 billion dollars per gigawatt.
Okay, so I think we got to really analyze that. 100 billion per gigawatt. OpenAI is trying to get like 30 gigawatts contracted by 2030. Is he just saying that, or what does that mean? And does that also mean all the picks and shovels have to go up if we're going to have so much capex being spent on these gigawatts of data centers?
Yeah, I mean that number was crazy. I mean, and it's true, right? Just you're seeing a massive improvement, and as long as innovation, as long as the chip design is improving at a rate faster than the cost, it's not going to be an issue, right? If it costs, if I, let's say right now buy a data center and it costs me $40 billion, but I can make 2x the revenue, I'm obviously going to pay for it, right? If it costs me $100 billion and I can do 3x the revenue or 4x the revenue, I'm 100% going to pay that $100 billion. So it's all about the rate of innovation for NVIDIA, and just AI in general too. So if they can keep moving, if they keep moving, and one thing is, at least we have the data point. He mentioned 1 gigawatt a few years ago wasn't costing 30 to 40. We saw that massive jump. So at least we have that data point that it did happen. So at least, I mean, we can say it's worked right now. Let's see how, this gives the benefit of the doubt that it's going to go to those numbers. And then to the second part is, yes, I mean, now you are going to be able to have all these downstream players be able to benefit even more money out of it. It makes it even cheaper if we know in the next, I was listening to, I don't own the company, but obviously I have to listen to it. VRT, so Vertiv, had an investor day about a week or two ago. And they mentioned that in their time frame, they expect for the next 5 years, every year, 20 to 30 gigawatts of data centers are going to be built up on a yearly basis. As we actually get closer to the end of the decade, you're actually getting closer to like 35 to 40. That's about 4 years away. And Vertiv is one of the players that like knows this market, right? Because if you're building a data center, these are one of the first players you have to call. You're the ones, they're the ones that pretty much built that whole infrastructure. So I would say what the data that they have is true data that you can kind of collect and put that, say, look, this is some actual numbers. So if you're talking about 25 gigawatts per year, and then closer to the end of the decade, you're talking about 30 plus, and then you're talking about 30 plus times $100 billion. What is the capex of these massive hyperscalers going to be in 2030?
But do you think Google can get a 3x ROI on $100 billion data center? Like, do you think that's because if they don't have that ROI, they can't justify that much that Jensen's talking about here.
Yeah.
And if their free cash flow doesn't live up to that, I mean, how is Google spending $100 billion on 1 gigawatt, right?
Yeah. And
unless the chips get so good, the AI gets so good, to your point, that people are paying Google a lot more money for their products and services, Amazon, Microsoft as well. But it feels like, that's going to take time to see it really develop.
Yeah. And I think with this AI story is you really have to play it out year by year, right? I mean, if robotic, let's just imagine, right? I mean, let's go some sci-fi here, but this is how my thought process goes. If we do get robotics by the end of the decade, now you're paying $100 billion for a data center. How many kind of like inference of a robotics mind? A lot of robotic stuff is going to be running on the edge itself, but there are going to be certain solutions that are going to be running on data centers that you don't need to have that instantaneous. But what kind of revenue is that robotic bringing to the world, right? It's like, if it's doing construction or if it's doing that, like, does that all add up to the end of the day of far par that price of that data center? If the answer is yes, then it makes sense, right? So that's the first thing. I mean, and then there could be different things of agentic AI, just software innovations. The scariest thing I would say for the AI market, and I was actually just reading a report from Semi-Analysis, is they called it the dark output or something like that of AI. And it's like, there's no real number that you can, AI is doing all this already. AI is doing so much, but there's like no real number that you can pretty much say that this was made by AI. So it's like, even though companies can see it, that they're growing so much, it's so hard to categorize it and say this portion of revenue, this portion of earnings per share was by AI. So it for the AI bears, it's the easy way of just tweeting, oh, AI companies are just telling me, trust me, bro. Right. That's pretty much the thing. But I don't even know where I was going with that. But it's
No,
AI needs to innovate.
Your broader point is the innovation can't be measured through conventional metrics because of the rate of progress. And I think the reason Snowflake is getting
Wow,
re-rated.
that was really good. That's exactly what I wanted to say, but I said it in like 10 times more words. More words, Jose. Small words, a bit.
Sometimes I crush it. I've been doing this for a couple of years. Other times I say hanger is a hangar, and I can't say words correctly, but we all have our moments. The reason Snowflake's up is because they're processing the tokens, right? They're in the workflow of the tokens. Nebius is also helping to generate the tokens. The NVIDIA chips obviously are involved. The CPUs are involved. So everything that's part of the stack, I think, is very interesting. And I know you're not a big software guy, but I would love your opinion on this. The software rotation coming back, do you think the market is also seeing these application layers as really being part of making this AI revolution become real, which is why Jensen continues to say that people selling off ServiceNow are stupid, because ServiceNow will play a role and enable the OpenAIs and Anthropics to continue putting out as many tokens as they are.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like I'm a little parrot to Jensen, because I mean, he's been saying this for a while, and I've repeated it. Where with Claude, I think I came here a few months ago, and I mentioned that with Claude, they started to get to do this thing where you can kind of connect different software solutions into Claude, and Claude is able to do whatever you ask for it. A perfect example is I have two softwares that I use a lot for my workflow. The first software is called Quarter, which is kind of it has a lot of info. For those that might not know, it used to be a retail investor app. Now they say screw retail. It's pretty much just for the big banks. I was able to somehow afford a membership there, but it's like where I get all my transcripts, all my information for all my semiconductor analysis. And Claude connects to that thing perfectly. It does all the workloads that I do perfectly. So I'm personally not using Quarter as much as I used to, but my Claude agent is using it nonstop. Like I have a Mac Pro right here on my side. Like it's all yesterday for like 24 hours. It was just making apps for me. It was just going to Quarter. It was going all over. The second is I have kind of like that membership community. In that membership community, the software that is there can also connect to Claude. So whenever I need to make some changes to the community, I just go on my phone. I connect to Claude and I say, hey, can you go make these changes to my community really quickly? And it does a lot of the stuff. So that's me using those softwares a lot less personally. But and actually, if you want to go there, I actually created 2 free apps. There's nothing, you don't even need to sign in. I created 2 free apps in this platform. Go down, explore the apps. So there's NVIDIA's AI Rain and the Power Terminal. This is more of kind of just like everything from NVIDIA.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then if you like click on earnings, it gives you like the top 10 things. If you go, there's earnings. And then if you click on the earnings, click on earnings, I think, because you just have earnings on the other thing. If you click on that, I think read full analysis on the bottom left. There should be like read full analysis. It like gives you stuff like that, right? So it's like, hey, I'm an NVIDIA person, do that.
So even though you're not using the applications, your agents are. The tokens are still flowing through them, which is the whole point that Jensen's making. Right.
So perfect Adobe, right? It's like people are probably going to be using Adobe a lot less, and the optics are going to look like software's dying, but it's not that. It's just the human interaction is leaving the software space, and it's not going to leave it all at. It's not. It's going to be gradually, but I feel like people are going to start saying they use Adobe a lot less, and then the market is going to continue to say, "Oh, maybe this SaaS story of death was true." But it's not that. It's just the agentic side of you is going to be using that app a lot more.
That's actually I haven't thought of it like that. Like if people stop using Adobe, whatever. But if the agents are using Adobe 10x more, Adobe's still going to get paid.
Yeah.
So you have an Adobe subscription, right?
Yeah. And then if they even change it a little bit more to being more consumption based opposed to just membership based.
Right.
Right. So then that changes the whole game. I think that's why Snowflake Snowflake mentions that they're more of a consumption based company. Right. They're not truly hey, you sign a subscription and that's it. It's more of like you pay for what you use. And in an agentic world, I see how that can benefit a bit.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that makes, and Adobe 220 to 270. I mean, Salesforce 160 to 205, ServiceNow 80 to 140. You're starting to see the market, I think, really perk up and realize Jensen was right again about the tokens being the core element of agentic workflows, which means the software companies will be more relevant. And then if these names dip, you're going to have the market think, well, they're already cheap. So if they dip again, they're still cheap.
And again, you said Jensen was right again. And this is one of the reasons why, even if Jensen says something crazy, I personally can give him the benefit of the doubt because he hasn't missed yet. I mean, 2 years ago, he started using this term of AI factory, where data centers were just going to be built for token generation. And people 2 years ago were like, what the freak is an AI factory? That's not going to happen. It's just going to be a cloud provider solution. But now you're seeing kind of these AI factories be a real thing. It's just purely a data center for just token generation. So it's like, there's so many points like that. Again, I don't know if NVIDIA has some magic crystal ball, if someone from there is from the future and knows what's going to happen every single year, but they keep hitting with these markets that, nope, that's not going to happen. And there's like, now we have hundreds of billions of dollars on CapEx from individual players.
Everyone, please make sure to follow Jose, his YouTube, his Twitter, and newsletter, putting that in the chat. So please make sure to check out his analysis as he continues every week to help us understand what's going on with the semiconductor world. Jose, Microsoft, you think this is a breakout and it's a reasonable breakout? I mean, now that they're becoming more of a theoretical chip play with Anthropic chips, potentially this new chip with NVIDIA on their laptops. I mean, at the end of the day, it is Microsoft, but are you at all excited for this name right here?
I'm excited for Microsoft as a whole, right? I don't think the AI chip from NVIDIA is that big of a driver for me. Because if not, these Intel and AMD were still going to have products and people were going to still buy. Maybe the only thing is, I wonder if with this NVIDIA chip, maybe you might get some market share back from people that were buying some Mac studios and kind of come back to the Windows ecosystem. I mean, we see right now, if you go to any tech conference or anywhere, even the presentations, it's usually being run on a Mac, right? It's usually being run on a Mac. If you open AI or somebody releases a product, you usually see it on the Mac. Or if NVIDIA is a little bit more involved in the Windows world, and if these partnerships can make it a little bit more, I guess, developer friendly to maybe how Mac is, there could be some win there for Microsoft. I mean, obviously the software win, as we're seeing that software turnaround happening. Again, I don't think you're going to use less Microsoft Word. It's just the human itself. You're going to see the interaction a lot less. But to email, to do your reading, to do your presentation for your for whatever, that agent is still going to be doing it. And then you just have the massive demand from cloud. So I like Microsoft a lot. But I don't really want to say it's because of the AI chip. I just think as a whole, the company is really well positioned.
Do you have any thoughts on Qualcomm's official entry into the data center with Dragonfly?
Yeah, so we just really got more of like a branding. I think they do have an investor event later this week. Historically, prior to this event, we heard of the AI 200 and the AI 250, and we saw that Saudis were deploying it. It's definitely cool. I mean, we're in the market where everybody could win. I would love to see more stuff during their investor day, right? What is coming with this Dragonfly brand? What is their cadence looking like? What are the different products? Are there new customers? But this one has taken off like no tomorrow.
Right. Final question to you for Photonics. Anything you got last night from Jensen on that industry? You're starting to see a little bit of move right here, or is it, optics continues to be an important part of the overall stack?
From yesterday's keynote, I can't say there was anything that drove me to say Photonics. I mean, the only thing is we know that Jensen wants to improve the power solutions.
This question goes in line with what you're saying about Photonics, but there was a moment where he talked about memory And I saw, it was funny because you and Tanner both got a little scared because everyone was like, is he going to say like we've innovated a new way? So memory photonics, like, do you think these things can theoretically be lessened if they innovate, or it doesn't matter? There will be more demand.
I think at the moment, there's so much demand that if it gets lessons, it's just going to get eaten up. I mean, if I'm still having trouble paying Claude X amount of hundreds of dollars and can still get token limit after a few hours of doing a few stuff, I think the demand is crazy. I would think this would be my thought process. If any of these players release some form of way to improve, I don't even know, efficiency, stuff like memory and stuff like that, the market would 100% see it in a negative light, and it could create massive sell-offs. But I would say that the demand is so high that it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. It's just you have the diamond hands to be able to, because it's going to happen. All these players need to improve efficiency somewhere. If they can improve efficiency in memory, they can improve efficiency in the power they need from copper or from optics or from anything in general. They're going to do it because, like we mentioned, even a 5% improvement in your total rack can mean hundreds of thousands, maybe not hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands of new GPUs on a data center. So a 5% improvement in a whole rack can go a long way. But it would just mean that they'll be able to sell more GPUs, which in theory more memory, which in theory more optics, and it goes on. So the optics might say this is bad, but as long as the demand is there, it's just do you have the diamond hands to withstand that whiplash that could go pretty crazy?
Final question for you, Jose. I'm assuming you don't care that oil's up 7% right now.
No, I got a Tesla.
It's just so funny, dude, because it's like, we look at all parts of the market, but at the end of the day, if you're focused on the core stuff that matters, I mean, oil up is not good, but this is the greatest time to be an investor in history because this type of technological revolution we've ever seen.
So what is the reason for I mean, let me learn also here. what is the reason for we having up right now?
Well, Iran said because of Israel's actions in Lebanon, they don't want to negotiate anymore. And then so the market's like, well, oil goes. But see, it's so funny because from your perspective, you're like, okay, who cares? What's the next NVDA? It's like, which is the right approach right now in this market. So that's fair. Yeah. All right, Jose, thank you so much. Jose's Twitter, YouTube, and What the Chip Happened, I am linking in the chat. These are his communities and newsletters. If you guys appreciate Jose's analysis, please make sure to follow him. He is central to my success as being able to invest in the semiconductor space. And I think for a lot of people, he's really helped us out all for free. So
and whatthechiphappen.com, I'm going to start releasing a lot of free apps there. Working on them. There was a power one that I did for data centers, which is pretty crazy. You don't even have to sign up to anything, like nothing at all. You just click free apps and you'll be able to get them there. So hopefully you guys enjoy that. And I'm working on innovating more stuff over time as well.
I love it. Jose, thank you. We will talk to you next week.
Peace out.
Okay, folks, markets don't care about oil. They don't care about this war. We are going higher. S&P still red, but a lot of names barely red. Taking off. Snowflake, go bye-bye. Salesforce, go bye-bye. Nebius goes bye-bye. Not even bye-bye. Goodbye. You know when you say goodbye, you're like, you're leaving? You're like goodbye versus bye. A good bye-bye on Mr. Nebius. 272.81, 18%. It looks like it has a date with a $100 billion market cap. CoreWeave, 125, up 14. Iran starting to hop on the train, 65.15, all the way from 61 this morning. So CoreWeave and Nebius not necessarily leaving without it. Oracle, I mean, this was a massive opportunity this year. I mean, it went to 350 September of 2025, fell all the way to 130. And then kind of consolidated from 130 to 200, or 130 to, I should say, 180 for about 5 months. and it gives you software exposure with NetSuite and data center exposure and OpenAI exposure. So very happy right here with the OpenAI or with the Oracle pickups. 239.67 up 6.2%. That one making a hell of a move. ARM as well, massive move. Micron, massive move. You're not seeing the software names get destroyed. You're seeing them still hold on. I mean, ServiceNow, it's not up at the highs of the days, but up 9%. I don't think anyone's mad about, even with ARM and Micron holding their highs. So you're seeing the market, I really think, starting to broaden out a little bit. Yes, NVIDIA is not getting a massive pump, but 4% is not horrible. SoFi, that's a candle. 1815 to 1845. That means Robinhood should be coming back. Robinhood trying to get back to 90. You're seeing a lot of this intraday movement to the upside in the midst of the macro news not mattering as the market moves forward. And we go up. Tesla, not the best day. Nokia, pretty nice day, up 5%. And then Meta, ugly day as well, but that's okay for Meta. They've got a lot of stuff to work out before the street changes their narrative on them, just like Microsoft had a lot of stuff to work out. And eventually the street changed their narrative. Whoa, Zeta, maybe 25 on deck. Maybe 25 on deck. Keel as well, looking for 6 right there. 599 did touch 6. There it is, up 5%. You're seeing a lot of different things participating right here, which is really, really exciting to see across the entire sector. It is not an isolated market for semis. It's semis and a lot of other stuff participating. Space still up 12%. And then Palantir trying to get back up to 160. Okay, folks, that's what we got. That's what we got. I would not be too afraid to buy into strength on a lot of this stuff, as Jose was saying. Like Keel, I mean, is there that big of a difference from 580 versus 6? Like, if this thing's going to 12, 15 bucks, doesn't really matter, right? Zeta, is there that big of a difference from 22 versus 25? If you think it's going to 40, no, right? Like some of these have completely left the station, and it's going to be a little tougher to buy them. ServiceNow 135 versus 80, but ServiceNow still down a lot. You know, same thing with Adobe. Adobe was at one point $450 a share. It's at 270. It's up from 220. Still down a lot. So if the software narrative is being re-rated, if the semiconductor names are being re-rated as well based on their earnings growth, Micron right here at 1,000. Again, if we get an ugly dip, which even with this macro news, the fact that we're not getting a dip is showing the resilience of this market. But some of these names buying into strength might not be the craziest thing. But June tends to be a little bit of a tougher month, and we're going to see how the market thinks of it. Right now, earnings momentum is strong, and that's how the market is continuing to go forward. Is Nebius shorted? Let me check the short float on Nebius. I actually haven't checked that. Also, like a name like Microsoft buying into strength, if you have to bag hold Microsoft, it's Microsoft, right? And it's like, it's been down and depressed for so many months that, same thing with Palantir, like the idea that these things go back to their lows, it's hard to see that. Wow, Nebius has a 23% short float. I did not know that. I think today is a short squeeze then. I mean, 18% on this type of momentum after the run it had last week. CoreWeave's at 15%, so the shorts have been stuck in these names for a while. And I think there's your squeeze that is happening today. Zeta, there you go, 25, baby. $25, 9% move on Mr. Zeta. I mean, dude, these, again, re-rating, completely getting re-rated. And if the market's ready to continue re-rating so many of these names, Oracle's about to touch 240, Iren just touched 66, then maybe we keep this going. When will options open higher for 35 on Zeta? I don't know. Probably when Zeta crosses like 27, 28, maybe even today, the market makers will open those up. But the good thing is those options are going to open up, and that's going to create even a higher liquid market. Robinhood as well, trying to push for 90 as that one's flipping green. All right, cool. That is it. Yes, it will be Knicks and Spurs in the finals. Forgot to talk about that today. Pretty epic game, but it will be Knicks and Spurs. I think the Knicks have a fighting chance. It's going to be tough, but I think the Knicks have a fighting chance. And hopefully we're going to see how this ends up playing out. All right, that is it for me. Incredible day. You got pretty much everything moving in the right direction. Even bad macro stuff could not hold this down. And if these names do end up consolidating a bit or taking a little bit of a dip, I don't think the market's going to be too upset about Nebius if it falls from 275 to 265. Very, very healthy pullbacks. You're seeing people buy the dip on the pullbacks, and the market's using that NVIDIA event as momentum to be excited for everything that we're seeing right here. Okay, word of the day. Let's end it out on word of the day, and then we'll be done. Do we have any earnings today after the bell? No, we have nothing. Okay, so today after the bell, we'll cover the headlines, but no major earnings that we have. All right, word of the day, Monday, June 1st. It is crazy how time is passing. The time is indeed passing. I will be traveling this week, so I will keep doing the market open every single day, but market close Wednesday, Thursday, Friday will not happen. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, but we will have market open this whole week. And Thursday, we'll let you guys know where I'm at. Word of the day is protein. There's no way I can get this wrong. There's no way. Able to change shape, form, or character easily, highly adaptable. There is no way I get this wrong. How to say protein. There's no freaking way. It's literally protein. There's no way in hell I get this shit wrong, dude.
Protein.
Why? Who in there? How do you... Protein. I know protein. There's another word for protein, obviously, but no one in the chat can tell me they thought it was No, I will not believe any of you. You're lying if you said this was protein. No. I refuse to believe it. Protein. Who's heard of this word? Protein. Okay, the streak goes back to 0.
Protein.
I should have known, dude. It sounded too easy. Protein. Able to change shape, form, or character. But there's no way I would have said protein. No way in 1,000 years I would have been like, yeah, protein. That wouldn't have happened. Stick with math? Yeah, he's a stick with math. All right. That's what we got. It is what it is. It is what it is. I learned this shit in 5th grade. Whatever, dude. Whatever. All right. That is it. That's the Canadian version of protein. That's hilarious. That's hilarious. All right. I'll be back. Market close. I'm just really, really happy that we're starting to see a lot of people participate in this bull market. I know it hasn't been the most fun seeing one sector control all of it, especially when the sector that wasn't participating was responsible for a lot of the token usage, and you're starting to see the market flip. And that's really cool because now everyone gets a little bit of love here. And I think we got a lot farther to go if the earnings growth continues to be as strong as it is. Salesforce up a nice 10% on the day. Snowflake up 9%. IBM up 9%. Zeta up 9.5%. Nabi is 17%. Just massive, massive moves and really cool to see it for everybody. All right. Thank you, everybody. Nasir, Amit goes bye-bye. Yes. Bye-bye for now. I'll be back on the close. Again, don't have any earnings, so we'll just cover some of the main headlines that we have. Tomorrow, we don't have earnings. Wednesday, unfortunately, we have a lot. Actually, no, tomorrow we have GitLab, Ulta, and Palo Alto Network. So tomorrow's a big one. We have Technical Tuesday as well. And then Wednesday, CrowdStrike and Broadcom. We'll cover those Thursday in the morning. All right. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. I'll see you guys on the market close. Bye, everybody. Have a good one.